Chapter 38. Yi Qianxian stared at the young girl who was hurrying towards him. She cut a sorry figure and the bloodstains on her face had been washed clean. However, because she had been on the run for this period of time, her face was covered in dust and sweat. She looked no better than before. Her clothes were torn in many places, and when she moved, one could vaguely see the lustrous light that flashed across her clothes. However, even though she was in such a sorry state and had still raised her hand to ask for help, he could not sense any sign of weakness from her. Even her cry for help was full of energy and self-righteousness. Yi Qianxian narrowed his eyes and sized up Luo Qingtong. At the same time, Luo Qingtong was also sizing up the man opposite her. She had to admit that even though the man's face was covered, it could not hide his aura and elegance. The way he lowered his head and looked at her was like a divine king from the 9 heavens, surveying his subjects. Indifferent, dignified, arrogant, sharp, unapproachable. However, Luo Qingtong quickly erased this feeling from her mind. What a joke! For the sake of survival, even if he really was a peerless divine king from the 9 heavens, she would drag him down from his high and mighty throne. Handsome, save me! Luo Qingtong took a deep breath and shouted, "If you don't save me, I'll tell everyone in the 9 Magi mountain range that the inner part of your thigh, near my little brother, has..." Boom! Yi Qianren's figure instantly moved. He appeared next to Luo Qingtong, and the divine sky-connecting beast roared when it sensed the threat from his aura. In an instant, an earth-shattering attack was launched towards him. Bam! Yi Qianxian's aura clashed fiercely with the divine sky-connecting beast's aura. The two strong forces collided, and the sound of explosions in the air rang out one after another, continuously rising and falling without end. Boom! As the divine connecting beast hissed in pain, Yi Qianxian chopped off one of the other party's long tails. His sharp gaze turned towards Luo Qingtong, who had already left the battlefield and was rushing into the distance. This woman had tricked him again. Yi Qianxian's expression darkened. His actions just now were completely unintentional. Luo Qingtong's voice was very loud, and what she said was very private. Before he could react, his body had already rushed out instinctively. In fact, that woman didn't even know who he was, nor did she know him. What could she proclaim? Moreover, there was no birthmark on his inner thigh. This woman really dared to say anything. While Yi Qianxian was gritting his teeth, Luo Qingtong had already run far away. Oh my God! That man's eyes were so scary. Luo Qingtong thought that if she was tricked by the same person 3 times in a row, her eyes would probably be scarier than the other person's. As he thought of this, his figure moved even faster. That man was so strong that he wasn't human. Such a strong divine connecting beast, he had chopped off one of its long tails with just a lift of his hand. Oh my God! Luo Qingtong didn't know whether it was right or wrong for her to provoke such a man again and again. Roar! Behind her, the divine connecting beast's miserable roars could be heard. She didn't know how it was being ravaged by that man. After being tricked by her for no reason, the other party's anger was probably going to be vented on the divine connecting beast. Luo Qingtong said a few words of Amitabha for the divine connecting beast without any sincerity and prepared to take a detour and sneak down the mountain. At this moment, a crack suddenly appeared under her feet. Chapter 39. This life and death dual polarity sword is the result of countless efforts of my sect. Unfortunately, it was not fully perfected. Otherwise, it could definitely kill a god. That's because we comprehended the inscription of life and death from the inscriptions on the divine tablet back then. Unfortunately, we had too little time and the news leaked out too quickly. As a result, all our efforts were in vain. Good disciple. You are a genius with a monstrous aptitude. Your cultivation is low, but you can see through the antidote of the most powerful medicine and poison. In the future, you will definitely be able to unravel all the secrets of the inscriptions on the divine tablet. At that time, you will be able to complete the inscriptions engraved in the life and death sword and push this sword to the level of a divine weapon. Luo Qingtong was pinned down by his hand and could not move at all. She could only accept his inheritance passively. She was really speechless. I didn't agree to accept your inheritance. What kind of good disciple are you calling me? Can you stop talking to yourself? However, she could not open her mouth at all. She could only stare at this unreasonable old man in front of her. Tian Mingzi had already made up his mind to force a deal. Even if Luo Qingtong stared at him, he would not let go. It didn't matter if Luo Qingtong did not want to accept it. He believed that Luo Qingtong was enough. Good disciple, you must be very careful when you use this life and death sword. It's best if you use your own inscription technique to coat it with another layer of inscriptions to cover up the inscription brand that I refined on it. In this way, the sect's enemies will not discover your existence. I know you are not willing to accept this inheritance, but until now, I have no other reliable person to entrust it to. He did not know whether the other people who rushed to inherit the inheritance were sincere or not. What if they entrusted it to the wrong person? Even if his soul was destroyed, he would not be able to atone for his sins. Thinking of this, Tian Mingzi sighed heavily. Little girl, just take it that I have wronged you. There will be no enemies in this world. You don't have to be so careful for the time being. However, the life and death sword is very powerful. In order to prevent others from harboring evil intentions, you still have to be a little more careful. I have too much to say to you. It is extremely difficult to get started with inscriptions. If I could, I would like to bring you along and lay a solid foundation for you. Unfortunately, I don't have much time left. Now, I will guide you to refine the 9 exquisite pagoda and the life and death sword. From now on, they will treat you as their master. As Tian Mingzi spoke, Luo Qingtong's qi. Suddenly, Tian Mingzi's body, Luo Qingtong Luo Qingtong, Luo Qingtong, Luo Qingtong Luo Luo, Qingtong Luo Luo's Luo. Rumble. Luo, those who had rushed to the mountain peak or to where the divine sky-connecting beast and Yi Qianren were fighting saw the immortal sect ruins on the mountain quickly collapse. Their eyes widened and their hearts were filled with disbelief. Luans. Luan Luluo Luan to Luo Luo to Lul. Someone has obtained the inheritance of the Luo Luo Luo. Someone must have obtained the inheritance of the Luo Luo Luo. Voices came from the crowd one after another. Everyone's heart was filled with jealousy. Who is it? Who has obtained the inheritance of the Luo 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 Luo? Find the person. Kill him. Snatch the inheritance of the Luo 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 Luo. Luo Luo Luo's people rushed toward the collapsed mountain peak with bloodshot eyes. Most of them had lost their minds. Yuan Mo, Luo Xining, and the others had just arrived at the foot of the mountain peak. In order to be the first to enter the Luo 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 Luo, Yuan Mo had even used the special reward he had received from the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. Chapter 40. F***ck. Luo Qingtong cursed in her heart. Before she could react, she was sucked into a ball of darkness. Bam! She fell heavily to the ground. Before she could get up, she heard a squeak that sounded like a pig being slaughtered. Ah! Master, save me! Luo Qingtong felt a headache coming on when she heard the squeak. That stupid pig would only call her master when it had something to do with her. She raised her head and saw that it was tied to a platform in front of her. There was a formation on the platform, and the totem of the divine connecting beast was engraved on it. It was obvious that this formation was related to the divine connecting beast outside. Luo Qingtong recalled what Little Pig said, that guy really came out. She really wanted to slap this stupid pig to death. Sure enough, everything was caused by you. She gnashed her teeth and said. I didn't have a choice. I was originally sealed here. Didn't I just tell you to run away? Ah. Now is not the time to talk about this. Quickly come and save me. If that heaven-connecting divine beast comes back, neither of us will have a good ending. Don't forget that we have a contract. Are you going to abandon me like this? Master, you are so cruel. Little Pig looked at her with teary eyes. His appearance was indescribably pitiful and cute. However, Luo Qingtong, who had already seen through him, didn't even spare him a glance. She knitted her brows and looked at the formation in front of her. This formation was countless times more complicated than the one she saw at the place where the man was recuperating. Luo Qingtong had seen all kinds of ancient formations in the 24th century. However, the one in front of her was even more complicated than the most ancient formations that were left behind by immortals. What kind of existence was Little Pig? How could he be sealed by such a formation? Furthermore, a divine connecting beast was left behind to guard him? Luo Qingtong thought to herself. With a cold face, she started to analyze the structure of this formation and the method to break it. Time slowly ticked by. Just as the divine connecting beast's totem was about to fill up, a bloody light flashed in Luo Qingtong's eyes. Bang! The formation that bound Little Pig suddenly exploded. Ha ha ha! I'm free! True freedom! At the center of the formation, Little Pig jumped up in joy. At this moment, a gloomy and aged voice suddenly appeared. Who broke into the forbidden area of my immortal Slayer palace and broke my formation? Bang! 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 Light suddenly lit up all around, illuminating the entire place in an instant. Immortal Slayer Palace? Luo Qingtong stepped forward and grabbed Little Pig in her hand to prevent it from being used to threaten her. She scanned her surroundings and realized that she had been too busy breaking the formation to notice that she was in a huge palace. Immortal Slayer Palace. Could it be the beautiful palace on the mountain peak? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and thought to herself. Pa! Just as she was thinking, her vision suddenly turned black. She had used up all the spiritual energy in her mind, and now she was completely blind. However, she was determined and didn't show it on her face. Instead, she secretly recovered her mental strength. You're actually blind? A blind person can break my formation? Interesting. That voice seemed to be very interested in her. Luo Qingtong felt a chill in front of her as if something had swept in front of her. That gust of wind was cold and gloomy. Luo Qingtong had encountered this kind of aura before. She immediately squinted her eyes. Chapter 41. My eyes are blind but my heart is not. What's the big deal about breaking the array? She said lightly. Ha ha ha. Good. Interesting. My eyes are blind but my heart is not. I like such a straightforward girl like you. Compared to those people who would call me a senior expert, they were much better. On the surface, they were respectful, but in reality, they couldn't wait to kill me. Ha ha ha. That person's voice was very sinister and had a hint of madness. Luo Qingtong listened but did not say anything. It did not matter if the other party was a lunatic or not. It had nothing to do with her. Little girl, look at you. You must have been harmed by someone, right? That person laughed a few times. Then, he restrained his tone and looked at her sinisterly. The poison in your eyes did not last more than 24 hours. Although your clothes are exquisite and beautiful, they are torn and tattered. It seems that you have been harmed by someone. And it is someone close to you. That voice sneered. So what? I will return all of them sooner or later. Luo Qingtong said coldly. Her sorry state was not something that anyone could see. Ha! Good. What a good return. I like arrogant little girls like you. That voice became crazy again. In the next second, his tone suddenly changed. Little girl, you and I are fated. Are you willing to inherit my sect's inheritance? I will not ask you to do anything. I just want you to clear the name of our immortal Slayer palace. Not interested. Luo Qingtong's voice was light. This old man was digging a hole for her to jump into? The name of the immortal Slayer palace was so evil. It was either a heretical sect or it was harmed by someone. Since he wanted her to clear the name of the other party, it meant that it was the second case. Looking at the power of the beautiful palace and the strength of the divine sky-connecting beast, the other party's enemy was not an ordinary person. She must be crazy to accept such a big trouble. Ha ha ha. Once she said that, that voice seemed to be even happier. Good, good, good. I didn't misjudge you. If you had said that you wanted it, you would be a corpse now. Ha ha ha. That voice seemed to have gone mad, seemed to be crying, and seemed to be laughing at the same time. It was gloomy and sharp, and it caused one's hair to stand on end upon hearing it. Luo Qingtong didn't care at all. She had heard sounds that were hundreds of times more terrifying than this. What was this? Little girl, you're very good. I like you very much. Don't be in such a hurry to refuse. Do you know what kind of existence our immortal Slayer palace is? That is the holy land of the immortal sects. As long as you obtain the inheritance of my immortal Slayer palace, no one here can stop you. The 7 desolates of the northern lands and the 3 islands of Penglai. These are the existences that you worship as gods. You are nothing in front of the immortal Slayer palace. The voice grew wilder and wilder. Luo Qingtong didn't have the heart to tell him that she didn't understand what he was saying at all. There was no such thing in the original owner's memory. However, the immortal sect Holy Land sounded quite amazing. Unfortunately, my fate is in my own hands, not in the hands of the heavens. She would get what she wanted. If she didn't want to, no one could force her. Old man, save your saliva. I'm really not interested in the inheritance of your immortal Slayer palace. Please open the door and let me out. There should be a lot of people running over here right now. There's bound to be someone who fits your requirements. She would politely decline this big trouble. No. I've taken a fancy to you. When that voice heard her words, he was almost angered half to death. This stinky girl. He had said so much just now, but it was all for naught, wasn't it? Do you know the benefits of inheriting our immortal Slayer palace's inheritance? It can allow you to look down on this world. And then be hunted down by the enemies of a stronger realm, right? Thank you. She didn't need it. She really didn't need it. Chapter 42. Also, don't you want to cure your eyes? Do you know that the poison in your body is not any ordinary poison? The alchemists here will not be able to cure you. Do you want to be blind for the rest of your life? Don't you want to regain your eyesight? I can help you. As long as you agree to accept the inheritance of the immortal Slayer palace. I will tell you how to cure your eyes. Luo Qingtong sighed when she heard this. I really don't need it. I know what kind of poison is in my body and I know how to cure it. I don't need your help. Hubby, you have so much time. You can open the door and choose a new successor. Now that the ruins of the immortal Slayer sect had appeared in the 9 Magi Mountain, the people outside would be running for their lives. Why was this old man so sure about her? Humph. It's worthless if you give it to me. I don't want it. Okay. This was a good and powerful reason. Luo Qingtong was speechless. Then, she heard the voice say angrily, "You are poisoned by the most powerful medicine. How do you know how to cure it?" That's impossible. I really know. Luo Qingtong did not want to waste any more time with him. She told him all the herbs that could cure the poison. Am I right? Can you let me go now? After Luo Qingtong finished speaking, she realized that the entire hall was silent. After an unknown amount of time, a low voice that sounded like crying and laughing suddenly came from the direction of that person. Ha ha ha. Good, good, good. The voice sounded like crying and laughing at the same time. In the next second, before Luo Qingtong could react, a cold finger was placed between her eyebrows. In an instant, an extremely huge and oppressive force rushed into her body. Little girl. It's you. I have waited for so many years. Finally, a prodigy like you has appeared. There is hope for the inheritance of the Immortal Slayer Palace. The legacy of the Immortal Slayer sect will not be lost. The voice was choking and trembling. Inexplicably, the image of a tearful old man suddenly appeared in Luo Qingtong's mind. He cried and laughed as he looked at Luo Qingtong. Then, he turned into a ray of light and wrapped Luo Qingtong up. Little girl, I won't let you do anything. You only need to inherit my sect's legacy. I, Tian Mingzi, roamed unhindered my entire life and ascended to the peak of the great Tao of inscription. But in the end, because of a moment of benevolence, I led a wolf into the house and ended up dying without a complete corpse, and my sect was destroyed. Now that my soul is about to disperse, I shall pass on my last legacy to you. I only hope that you can pass down my sect's inscription technique, don't let it die out. There are two supreme treasures here. I risked my life to bring them out of the sect when it was destroyed. Those people destroyed my sect because of greed. Even if I don't have a corpse left, I won't leave a fart for them. At this point, the old man spat fiercely before continuing. This is the 9-layered exquisite pagoda. It has endless magical uses. My sect's legacy is inside. You can take a look at it. This life and death sword is the root of my sect's destruction. The sword has two blades, one is life and the other is death. The life blade can absorb life and soul to replenish your strength. The death blade can kill people. The cut is extremely difficult to heal and save. The stronger you are, the harder it is to heal the cut. Only the life blade can dispel the power of the death blade. Chapter 43. This life and death dual polarity sword is the result of countless efforts of my sect. Unfortunately, it was not fully perfected. Otherwise, it could definitely kill a god. That's because we comprehended the inscription of life and death from the inscriptions on the divine tablet back then. Unfortunately, we had too little time and the news leaked out too quickly. As a result, all our efforts were in vain. Good disciple. You are a genius with a monstrous aptitude. Your cultivation is low, but you can see through the antidote of the most powerful medicine and poison. In the future, you will definitely be able to unravel all the secrets of the inscriptions on the divine tablet. At that time, you will be able to complete the inscriptions engraved in the life and death sword and push this sword to the level of a divine weapon. Luo Qingtong was pinned down by his hand and could not move at all. She could only accept his inheritance passively. She was really speechless. I didn't agree to accept your inheritance. What kind of good disciple are you calling me? Can you stop talking to yourself? However, she could not open her mouth at all. She could only stare at this unreasonable old man in front of her. Tian Mingzi had already made up his mind to force a deal. Even if Luo Qingtong stared at him, he would not let go. It didn't matter if Luo Qingtong did not want to accept it. He believed that Luo Qingtong was enough. My good disciple, you have to be very careful when you use this life and death sword. It's best if you use your own inscription technique to coat it with another layer of inscriptions to cover up the inscription mark I've made on it. In this way, the sect's enemies will not discover your existence. I know you are not willing to accept this inheritance, but until now, I have no other reliable person to entrust it to. He did not know whether the other people who rushed to inherit the inheritance were sincere or not. What if they entrusted it to the wrong person? Even if his soul was destroyed, he would not be able to atone for his sins. Thinking of this, Tian Mingzi sighed heavily. Little girl, just take it that I have wronged you. There will be no enemies in this world. You don't have to be so careful for the time being. However, the power of the life and death yin-yang sword is enormous. In order to prevent others from harboring evil intentions, you'd better be careful. Master has too many things to say to you. It is extremely difficult to enter the path of inscription. If possible, Master would like to bring you into the path of inscription and lay a solid foundation for you. Unfortunately, I don't have much time left. Now, conceal your spirit and chi. I will guide you to refine the 9-story exquisite pagoda and the life and death sword. From now on, they will regard you as their master and will not abandon you no matter what. As Tian Mingzi spoke, Luo Qingtong felt a burst of energy suddenly rushing towards the center of her eyebrows. After that, it rushed towards the depths of her mind. Rumble. Following Tian Mingzi's actions, the entire 9-shaman mountain range began to shake violently. What happened? Those who had rushed to the mountain peak or to where the divine sky-connecting beast and Yi Qianxian were fighting saw the celestial sect ruins on the mountain quickly collapse. Their eyes widened in disbelief. How was this possible? The immortal sect ruins had collapsed? Someone has obtained the inheritance of the celestial sect. Someone must have obtained the inheritance of the celestial sect. Voices rang out from the crowd one after another. Everyone's heart was filled with jealousy. Who is it? Who has obtained the inheritance of the celestial sect? Find the person. Kill him. Snatch the inheritance of the celestial sect. Everyone's eyes were bloodshot as they rushed towards the collapsed mountain peak. Most of them had lost their minds. As for Yu Wenma, Luo Xinning and the rest, they had just arrived at the foot of the mountain peak. In order to be the first to enter the celestial sect ruins, Yu Wenma had even used the special reward he had received from the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. Chapter 44. Rumble. The veins on Yu Wenma's forehead almost popped out when he saw the celestial sect relic collapsing in front of him. He looked at the peak of the mountain gloomily and then turned to look at Luo Xinning and the rest coldly. If he hadn't met them halfway and Luo Xinning had begged him to bring them along to find Luo Qingtong, who had broken through in the Jiaowu mountain range, he might not have missed the celestial sect relic. What a bunch of trash. And Luo Qingtong too. Of all times, she had to break through in the Jiaowu mountain. What's the use of breaking through with such poor talent? A martial master couldn't even compare to his guards. She could just be a wallflower and wait for him to marry her. What's the point of showing off? Yu Wenma's eyes were cold. Luo Xianning's heart skipped a beat when he looked at her. She took a step back. Your Highness, she called out softly and glanced at the new students of the Saint Academy beside Yu Wenma. These people had all come out with Yu Wenma on this mission. Sensing her gaze, Yu Wenma forcibly suppressed the anger in his heart. Let's go. He didn't want to lose his dignity as a senior in front of these new students. These people would most likely be his followers after he entered the Saint Academy. Luo Xinning was unwilling to see him leave. She had followed Yu Wenma all the way here. Of course, she wanted to go further. Even if she couldn't get the celestial sect's inheritance, it would be good to get something else. She couldn't help but ask, Your Highness, aren't we going up? So many people have gone up. It's a pity to give up. She looked at the new students of the Saint Academy. These people didn't want to leave at first. But when they came out, the teachers told them to listen to Yu Wenma's orders. Hearing Luo Xinning's words, someone couldn't help but say, Yeah, senior, aren't we going up? What if there's still a chance? This was the celestial sect relic. They didn't want to give up so easily. Stupid. Yu Wenma was unhappy but he didn't show it. It's too late. The celestial sect relic has collapsed. It means that everything inside is gone. Not only that, the person who obtained the inheritance is definitely not among them. If these people rush up, they won't get anything. They will only kill each other. If we follow them, we'll only get sucked into it. Fellow junior brothers, we still have matters to attend to by teacher, so it's not appropriate for us to stay here. As soon as his words came out, those freshmen of the Sacred Academy who had been carried away by the battle instantly sobered up. That was right. The collapse of the immortal sect ruins meant that the person who obtained the inheritance was no longer there. Those who were unwilling to give up would not be able to get it even if they rushed up. Under extreme unwillingness, these people were so anxious that their eyes turned red. They only knew how to kill and steal. At that time, it would be a chaotic battle. Thinking of such a scene, everyone's face paled. Fortunately, Yu Wenma had seen through all of this. Otherwise, they would have all been dragged into it. Who knew how many people would have died? The main thing was that those casualties were completely worthless. What treasures did these people have that they would covet? With that thought in mind, everyone decisively said, "Senior brother, let's go." Yu Wenma nodded. He took one last look at the collapsing palace on the mountain peak. He felt an indescribable sense of regret. The ruins of an immortal sect. It was a pity that he had no fate with it. Just as Yu Wenma and the others were about to leave. Roar! An extremely tragic roar of a beast resounded in the sky. Everyone raised their heads and looked in the direction of the sound. Then, they took a deep breath. Chapter 45. Rumble at the edge of the sky, where the huge beasts were entangled in battle, a shattered scene suddenly appeared. Large chunks of the mountain range collapsed. Mountains collapsed one after another. Up in the sky, a human figure was intertwined with the gigantic beast. Every collision of their attacks was enough to shatter mountains, collapse rocks, and tear space apart. Looking at it, one could not help but feel a chill in their hearts. Tremble. So strong. Everyone stared blankly at the battle in the sky. How could a person fight a divine beast like this? This was simply terrifying. Bang! Seeing the heaven-connecting divine beast being heavily blasted away, the surrounding crowd let out a series of gasps. Their attention had been focused on the immortal sect ruins and they had forgotten about the situation with the divine beasts. Only at this moment did he realize that the divine beast was actually being beaten back by a single person. Furthermore, he was covered in injuries. They gasped as they watched the sky-connecting divine beast wailing as it was blasted into the dense forest deep in the mountain range. Their eyes were filled with uncontrollable shock. How terrifying! So powerful. To actually be able to beat the heaven-connecting divine beast to such a state. Oh my God! Everyone was shocked. There were even more people who saw what happened to the martial kings and soul masters. They were even more reverent towards Yi Qianren, who was able to beat the heaven-connecting divine beast until it cried out in pain and fled. Senior brother. Did you see that? This person is so strong. I'm afraid he's even stronger than the principal. Seeing the man and beast disappear from their sight, the people behind Yu Wenma all swallowed their saliva with all their might. They were all people who had participated in the entrance examination of the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. However, even the most powerful cultivator of the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin, the Dean of the Sacred Academy, didn't give them such an oppressive aura as this man did. It was too terrifying. What level was the other party at? They had clearly seen that after the man had repelled the divine sky-connecting beast, he had glanced over. It was just a faint glance, and it wasn't even directed at them, but it made them feel as if a sharp sword had pierced through their hearts. If the other party really made a move, even if they were thousands of meters apart, they would still be killed in an instant. As these people thought about it, they swallowed even more saliva. All of them felt their hearts palpitate. The other party clearly did not do anything, but they felt as if they had just taken a trip around the gates of hell. Yu Wenma's forehead was also covered in sweat. The other party's aura was too strong. He couldn't resist at all. Go! He roared in a low voice and led everyone down the mountain. The group of people did not dare to stay any longer and left directly. Luo Xingning was also dragged down the mountain by the Luo family. After this incident, no one dared to stay in the Nine Shamans Mountain. No one knew if that expert would start a massacre in this mountain range. Even a divine beast could not defeat him. Even if there were a whole mountain full of people, it would not be enough for him to kill. Thinking of this, everyone's hearts were beating like drums as they ran at lightning speed. As Luo Xingning was dragged away by the Luo family, she kept looking back in the direction where Yi Qianxian had disappeared. This was the first time she had seen such a strong person. In the past, she had thought that a man like Yuan Mo was strong enough. Now, it seemed that Yuan Mo, who was known as the #1 genius of the Empire of Tianyu, could not be compared to that man at all. Most importantly, although Luo Xingning did not see the man's face clearly, she could vaguely tell that the man was not old from the slight outline of his face. Was there really such a talented man in this world? Luo Xingning stared at the man's silhouette as he disappeared into the forest. Her heart itched as if it was being scratched by a cat. Chapter 46. Rumble. Luo Qingtong did not know what was happening outside. At this moment, she was wholeheartedly refining the 9-story exquisite pagoda and the life and death sword under Tian Mingzi's guidance. These two items were the most precious treasures of the celestial sects. To successfully refine them for one's own use, it was naturally not something that could be compared to ordinary circumstances. Luo Qingtong gritted her teeth and endured wave after wave of attacks from their auras. If not for the fact that she had lived 2 lives and had a strong mental strength, she would have been rolling on the ground in pain by now. As the pain escalated, great changes began to take place in her body. Her meridians were completely opened and widened. Luo Qingtong could feel that her body was transforming at every moment. According to Tian Mingzi, this was because the 9-story exquisite pagoda and the life and death sword were changing her physique so that she could accommodate and use them. This process was a kind of cleansing of Luo Qingtong's body. Once she got through it, Luo Qingtong's physique and talent would be promoted to a terrifying level. After all, in this world, those who could accommodate and use the most precious treasures were not ordinary people. What made Tian Mingzi even more surprised was that Luo Qingtong was actually born with the mixed yuan body. In his words, with this physique, Luo Qingtong could practice any cultivation method and power in this world without any restrictions or hindrances. Luo Qingtong was in so much pain that she did not have the energy to refute him. She was like this in her previous life. No matter what she practiced, she could master it in an instant. Hindrance, what was that? Could it be that her soul had transmigrated to another world, so her physique from her previous life was also brought along? Luo Qingtong remembered that the previous Luo Qingtong's talent was not so powerful. She was only slightly stronger than ordinary people. This was also one of the worries of the original owner. She always felt that her talent was not worthy of Yuan Ma. All along, no matter how much the Tianyu royal family disliked her, they did not say a word. If she had this physique, Yuan Ma would not be a genius. He would have been suppressed by the original owner long ago. While Luo Qingtong was being cleansed by the 2 treasures in the underground palace, the Luo family was putting on a show of forcing the emperor to abdicate. Bastard! What is the meaning of this? Qingtong's body hasn't been found yet. What right do you have to say that she's dead? He even wanted to take everything away from her. Let me tell you. Dream on. Old Master Luo slapped his chair and stood up in anger. He glared at the people kneeling in front of him with bloodshot eyes. He wanted nothing more than to kick them all to death. The 9 Magi Mountain had undergone a great change and Qingtong's fate was unknown. Instead of searching for her, they were kneeling here and begging him to clear Luo Xingning's name and make her the rightful successor of the Luo family. He even wanted him to hand over the things that belonged to Qingtong. How dare they? Grandfather Luo was furious. When he looked at Luo Feihong and Luo Xinning with his bloodshot eyes, he wanted to eat them alive. This is impossible. Unless he saw Qing Tong die with his own eyes. Otherwise, he would never agree to change the successor. Luo Xinning wanted to replace Qing Tong. Dream on. Grandfather Luo looked at his third granddaughter coldly. This granddaughter of his was very obedient in front of him. But what was Grandfather Luo's eyesight? He could easily see the perfunctory and ambition in her eyes. Now that Luo Qingtong was in trouble, Luo Xinning could not wait to cause trouble. Did she really think that he was blind? Luo Xinning was very calm in the face of Grandfather Luo's furious gaze. Since she dared to do this, she was not afraid of Grandfather Luo's revenge. Besides, did he have any evidence? Chapter 47. Grandpa, you've heard about the great changes in the Nine Magi Mountain. If Big Sister breaks through there, she won't be able to survive. She looked at Grandpa Luo and tried to persuade him. I know you love elder sister, but this is the truth. You can't ignore it just because you don't want to. I also know that my father and uncles are very unreasonable in their actions. But... Her eyelashes trembled as she looked at the old man. Her throat seemed to be choking as she said, for the future of the Luo family, we have no choice but to do this. That's right. Luo Xinning's words seemed to have opened a way for everyone to take a breather in the face of Elder Luo's pressure. These people felt that they were wrong before, but after hearing Luo Xinning's words, they immediately straightened their backs. They weren't doing this for their own selfish reasons, but for the greater good of the Luo family. Father. The fifth son of the Luo family knelt on the ground and said to Elder Luo, Qingtong is dead. She can't be alive after breaking through in the Nine Magi Mountain. Don't be stubborn. Compared to her, the future of the Luo family is more important. Yes. Father. The eighth son of the Luo family also knelt and kowtowed. I know you think we're unfilial and don't have any kinship. But Qingtong is gone now. The marriage with the royal family of Tianyu is definitely not going to happen. But we still have Ning-er. Ning-er is not weaker than Qingtong. Now Qingtong is gone. Our Luo family can only rely on Ning-er. Father, have you forgotten the situation of our Luo family in the eastern border state? All these years, because of the marriage with the royal family of Tianyu, the royal family of Eastern Border Empire has always pampered us. Now, that last Qingtong was gone. If we don't have someone who can support the family, our Luo family will be in big trouble in the future. At this time, only by helping Ning-er can our Luo family have a chance in the future. Father. Give Ning-er the Luo family's heirloom armor and the recommendation letter from the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. Father. Please think for the Luo family. The second son of the Luo family also rushed forward. Get lost. Elder Luo was so angry that his whole body trembled. He raised his foot and kicked Luo Lauer away. The Luo clan. Do you still remember? If it weren't for the two of them, the Luo clan would have been wiped out long ago. Since when did you have the right to covet Qingtong's things? The family heirloom armor was something that boss risked his life to obtain for the Luo clan. And that recommendation letter? It was given to Qingtong by Tianyu's royal family. Why do you want it? That's all I have to say today. Not to mention that Qingtong's body hadn't been found yet, even if it was. No one was allowed to touch what belonged to her. Whoever dares to reach out, I will chop off their claws. If any one of you dares to say another word here today, I will beat him to death right here. Just pretend that there's no such person in the Luo family. Grandfather Luo's harsh words stunned everyone. They hadn't expected that the old man would protect Luo Qingtong to this extent. Wasn't she just a little girl? The two of them hadn't been around for so many years. How could the old man still protect her like she was the apple of his eye? He wouldn't let go even if he died. The group of people didn't dare to say a word. Luo Xinling's fingernails dug into her palms. Suddenly, she sneered. I'm afraid it's not up to you now, grandfather. Luo Xinling raised her head and looked into grandfather Luo's furious face. She said sarcastically, the fifth prince already knows about this. Since eldest sister is dead, the engagement with the royal family of Tianyu is naturally cancelled. Grandfather, if I go to the royal family of Tianyu and tell them that you don't want to admit eldest sister's death and want a dead person to marry the fifth prince, what do you think they will do? Of course, they would defame the dead Luo Qingtong and cancel the engagement once and for all. Chapter 48. It took Luo Qingtong 3 days to refine the two treasures. Under the baptism of the aura of the two treasures, her body constitution was completely enlightened. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's meridians were all unblocked. This was the body constitution of a martial artist who had reached the martial king realm. After reaching the martial king realm, the meridians of a martial artist's body were opened, and the profound qi flowed endlessly, forming a natural cycle. Any cultivation method or martial arts technique below the king realm would not be exhausted. The martial king realm was an important watershed for a martial artist's cultivation. It was the huge difference between the acquired and the congenital. A martial king realm expert could slaughter all the experts below the martial king realm in a whole country. At that realm, the number of people was meaningless. Without the loss of strength, it meant that a martial king realm expert was a perpetual killing machine. Unless it was a martial king realm expert, no one could resist it. At this moment, Luo Qingtong was only a martial master, but she already had the body constitution of a martial king realm expert. Any cultivation method or martial arts technique below the king realm would not cause her any loss of strength. Although the strength in her body was weak, it had reached the level of endless growth. If anyone knew about this, they would be so shocked that they couldn't control themselves. Luo Qingtong's innate mixed yuan body was also completely activated in this baptism. Phew! Luo Qingtong took a deep breath and opened her eyes. The strength in her body had been completely replenished, and her strength had been restored to its peak. The mental strength that had been exhausted was also replenished at this time. Swish! Luo Qingtong opened her eyes and looked around. The old man's figure had disappeared. Tian Mingzi used the last bit of his soul strength to protect her and let her go through the most painful refining process of the treasures. Without Tian Mingzi's protection, it was uncertain whether Luo Qingtong could survive. After all, the two treasures passed down from the Immortal Slayer Palace were not ordinary. Especially the Life and Death Sword, which was close to the category of a divine weapon. Until the last moment, Tian Mingzi did not ask anything of Luo Qingtong. Just like what he had said to Luo Qingtong before, he did not ask Luo Qingtong to do anything. He only wanted her to live well and protect the inheritance of the Immortal Slayer Palace. Little girl, I'm sorry. I cheated you this time. Just take pity on this old man. When Tian Mingzi finally dissipated, his entire soul became exceptionally clear and cheerful. It was as if he had been a cute old urchin in the past. He looked at Luo Qingtong and laughed loudly. His eyes flashed with a cunning and wise light. I know that with your temperament, you'll definitely repay kindness with kindness and take revenge 100 times over. But even though this old man cheated you, I also left you so many good things. Especially my sect's inscription Dao. You stinky girl, your talent in alchemy is so strong. It's impossible that you don't have any interest in the path of inscriptions, right? In addition, although I can't remove the poison in your eyes, I have left a trace of power in your eyes. When you run this trace of power, you can temporarily restore your vision, but the time is limited to 4 hours. You can only use it once a day, so you have to use it carefully. I'm leaving. Chapter 49. Luo Qingtong recalled the earnest advice in her mind. She did not know why, but she suddenly could not get angry. This stinky old man, he is really, Luo Qingtong was annoyed. He said that he did not ask for anything from her. But if she accepted the inheritance of the Immortal Slayer Palace, wouldn't it mean that she had accepted all the past grievances of the Immortal Slayer Palace? But this stinky old man said it in such a pitiful way, and he was so humble, and he looked like a good master. Needless to say, he really poked at Luo Qingtong's lifeline. She was a good person, but she was amenable to coaxing and not coercion. If Tian Mingzi forced her to accept the inheritance, and she had to promise to clear the name of the Immortal Slayer Palace, Luo Qingtong would rather destroy the inheritance of the Immortal Slayer Palace than to care about him. But he was so humble, and he gave her so many benefits. Although these benefits were accompanied by trouble, but in the end, every word and sentence was for her own good. Forget it. I don't blame you. Since she had accepted the inheritance, she would be the successor of the Immortal Slayer Palace. It was fine if the enemies of the Immortal Slayer Palace did not come looking for her. If they really came, she did not mind helping the stinky old man to clear the name of the Immortal Slayer Palace. If people do not offend me, I will not offend them. If people offend me, I will kill them. Let's take a look at the 9 stories Exquisite Pagoda and Life and Death Sword. Luo Qingtong was very curious about the 2 treasures that Tian Mingzi risked his life to bring out. Her mind settled into her body, and she quickly found the shrunken pagoda and sword in her sea of consciousness. Needless to say, the 9 stories Exquisite Pagoda was a 9 stories tall pagoda. Now that it had shrunk, it looked very mini and cute. But the aura that it exuded showed that this pagoda was not an ordinary item. Luo Qingtong had seen many treasures in her previous life, but none of them gave her the same feeling as the 9 stories Exquisite Pagoda. It was an aura that had existed for a very long time. According to Tian Mingzi's words, the 9-story Exquisite Pagoda was not forged by the people of the Immortal Slayer Palace. It had always been in the Immortal Slayer Palace. Nobody knew what level of treasure it was. However, for him to treat the Life and Death Duality Sword with such caution, it was likely that the Life and Death Duality Sword was no less valuable. It was probably on the same level as a divine artifact. Little Pig's figure was nowhere to be seen. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and focused her mind on the 9-layer Exquisite Pagoda. She immediately saw the pink pig suppressed in the bottom level of the pagoda. Ao ao ao. Little Pig yelled from the first floor of the tower. Countless transparent flames chased after him, burning him to the point that he was howling in pain. It had originally thought that it would be completely free without the array formation sealing it. Unexpectedly, that damned old man actually gave the inheritance of the Immortal Slayer Palace to Luo Qingtong along with the 9-layered Exquisite Pagoda. This 9-layered Exquisite Pagoda was also known as the Demon Subduing Pagoda. Trapped inside, Little Pig really wanted to cry but had no tears. That's why it said that spinning a cocoon around oneself leads to one's own destruction. That damned old man made it sound so nice. He insisted that Luo Qingtong inherited the Immortal Slayer Palace's inheritance. Wasn't it because he had contracted that girl as his master? If it wasn't for that, how could he help Luo Qingtong refine the 9-layered Exquisite Pagoda with his remaining soul? None of the previous sage sects had the ability to do so. What a humph! It had dug its own grave. Luo Qingtong coldly snorted when she saw Little Pig howling in pain. She decisively shifted her gaze away. It was this stupid pig that caused her to take on such a big trouble. It deserved to be taught a lesson. I'll let it enjoy itself in there. Luo Qingtong thought. She withdrew her mind from the 9-layered Exquisite Pagoda and looked at the Life and Death Duality Sword floating on the other side. Chapter 50. The Sword of Life and Death was 7 feet long, and its body was black and white. Luo Qingtong could see clearly that its 2 blades were shining with 2 different lights. One was black and the other was white. They were intertwined with each other. Luo Qingtong looked at it, narrowed her eyes, and suddenly raised her hand. With a swish, the sword of life and death disappeared from her sea of consciousness in an instant and appeared in her hand. With the long sword in her hand, Luo Qingtong instantly felt a cool feeling all over her body. It went straight up her palm. The way to use the sword naturally appeared in her mind. Crack! With a soft sound, Luo Qingtong pressed her finger. The long sword in her hand instantly changed into a form. The silver-white long sword hummed faintly. It was the state of the life blade. Rays of silver-white light lingered around the long sword, giving people a feeling of exuberant vitality and interest. Luo Qingtong looked at the life blade. The next second, she raised her hand and slashed her wrist. With just a slight movement, a blood mark appeared on her wrist in an instant. With the appearance of the blood mark, her body and even soul weakened in an instant. Something seemed to be flowing out from the wound opened by the life blade. With a buzz, Luo Qingtong's mind became dizzy for a moment. However, it quickly stabilized in an instant. The things that he had lost before had been replenished by the raw blade in his hand. Luo Qingtong felt that this was because the sword of life and death belonged to her. That was why it didn't hurt her, its master. The essence, qi, and spirit that she had lost were replenished at once. If it were another enemy, the other party wouldn't be so lucky. Good! Luo Qingtong shouted softly. The smile on her lips was enchanting and wanton. There seemed to be a bloody light in her empty eyes. What a powerful ability to absorb and replenish. Absorbing the strength of others to replenish her own consumption? It was indeed worthy of the name of the life blade. With the effect of this life blade, no matter who Luo Qingtong fought in the future, she would have a certain advantage. What about the effects of Death Blade? The thoughts in Luo Qingtong's mind changed, and the long sword in her hand also changed its state in an instant. A long sword appeared in her hand. Even the shape of the sword hilt had changed. If it was said that the previous life blade gave Luo Qingtong a feeling that it was full of vitality and contained infinite vitality, then this life blade gave Luo Qingtong a feeling of extreme vitality. This death blade gave Luo Qingtong a feeling of extreme thirst for slaughter and blood. This time, Luo Qingtong did not experiment with her own body. Whoosh! She slashed out with her sword, and the body of the sword carried a black aura. In an instant, a fan-shaped sword wind swept out and left a deep mark on a beam 100 meters in front of him. Sword Qi. This was the external release of Qi that only a martial artist who had reached the Xiantian realm and become a martial king could possess. And Luo Qingtong used the life and death sword to do it easily. However, when the sword wind swept out, the strength in Luo Qingtong's body was instantly depleted. Obviously, the strength in her body was not enough to support her continuous external release of sword qi. Even so, Luo Qingtong was very satisfied. This life and death sword is indeed a good treasure. No wonder the enemies of the Immortal Slayer Palace would rather destroy this holy ground to obtain it. However, it was obvious that those people did not succeed even after trying their best. Otherwise, this life and death sword would not be in her hands. Alright. Now we can return to the Luo family in Windgaze City. Luo Qingtong put away the life and death sword and sneered. She wanted to see how that scheming bitch Luo Xinning would torment herself after causing the death of the original owner. Don't disappoint her too much. With a whoosh, Luo Qingtong's figure directly swept out of the underground palace of the Immortal Slayer Palace. Chapter 51. Rumble. Luo Qingtong's expression did not change as she listened to the continuous collapsing sounds behind her. Her eyes were dark red as she continued to move upwards. In an instant, she had rushed out of the ground. Bam! She was not at the peak of the Nine-Witch mountain range. That was right. The appearance of the Immortal Slayer Palace had caused such a huge commotion. Perhaps there were still experts searching for her there. Unless Tian Mingzi was a fool, he would not leave her there. Wouldn't he be waiting for her to receive the inheritance and then be captured by others? Luo Qingtong looked around carefully and realized that she was still in the Nine-Witch Mountain. Furthermore, she was not far from the place where she had been attacked and fell into the crack. Apparently, the ruins of the Immortal Slayer Palace on the peak of the mountain was just a mirage that looked good. The real inheritance of the Immortal Slayer Palace was actually in the underground palace. That stinky old man was quite careful. Luo Qingtong thought of the young man that she had left behind when she was escaping. She did not know if he was still there. The Nine-Witch Mountain range was in a mess. Although the place that she had chosen in haste was hidden, it would not be able to hold so many people roaming around. Luo Qingtong thought for a while and decided to take a look. What if that young man was still there? If he was, she would bring him back to Windgaze City. If he was not, then forget it. Life and death were predestined. She had no choice. As she thought, Luo Qingtong headed in that direction. Along the way, there were shocking scenes everywhere. There was blood stains every 3 steps and corpses every 10 steps. Just as Yu Wenma had said, those who had come to the Nine-Witch Mountain in search of opportunities started to panic when they realized that they could not obtain the inheritance of the Immortal Slayer Palace. Someone took the opportunity to kill people and steal their treasures. These few days, the Nine-Witch Mountain range was in chaos. However, there were some areas that those people did not dare to enter. One of them was the place where Yi Qianxian and the divine sky-connecting beast were fighting. The place where the man and the beast fought was filled with an energy vortex that did not dissipate for a long time. Anyone who was close enough would be immediately torn to shreds by the remnant energy if their cultivation base was not strong enough. Luo Qingtong glanced at it and recognized that it was the aura of the divine connecting beast. She was shocked. That man was indeed terrifyingly powerful. He actually fought with the heaven-connecting divine beast to such an extent. And looking at the extension of this area, it was obvious that he had the upper hand. The aura of the divine sky-connecting beast retreated. Oh my God! Was he still human? Luo Qingtong thought of the scene where she pressed him down by the healing spring water to brew the sauce. Suddenly, she felt a chill in her heart. Fortunately, he couldn't move at that time. Otherwise, he would be dead for sure. The next time I see that man, I must stay far away from him. Luo Qingtong thought about how she had lured the heaven-connecting divine beast to the other party. It was too bold. Fortunately, the heaven-connecting divine beast was holding him back. Thinking of this, she patted her chest, feeling a lingering fear. They soon arrived at their destination. Luo Qingtong glanced at the place where she had put the youth down. She saw that the fallen leaves and branches there had been removed. She looked around carefully and found that the traces in the surroundings were not messy. In fact, they were very careful. The fallen leaves and branches had been gently removed to one side. It was obvious that the person who had come knew the youth and was very familiar with him. He was on his side. Not an enemy. Since that was the case, it was fine. At least she had not caused his death. After making sure that the youth was fine, Luo Qingtong turned around and prepared to leave. At this moment, a faint and weak roar came from not far in front of them. This voice, Luo Qingtong suddenly raised her head and looked in that direction. Chapter 52. Whoosh! Luo Qingtong's figure flashed and appeared at the edge of a cliff in an instant. She took a closer look and realized that this cliff was not natural, but was forcibly cut off by something. That divine sky-connecting beast was below. Luo Qingtong pondered for a moment and then decided to go down. That divine sky-connecting beast's voice was very weak and was no longer a threat to her. And if she did not hear wrongly, the other party's situation was special. She would definitely be able to obtain a huge amount of benefits if she went down. She would be a bastard if she did not take advantage of it. Luo Qingtong decisively leaped down the cliff. That cliff was close to 10,000 feet high. She did not know what kind of force was used to create such a terrifying height. Luo Qingtong thought of the man who was locked in battle with the divine sky-connecting beast and suddenly felt her scalp tingle. She had jumped down in a moment of hot-headedness. Only now did she think of that man. Could he also be below the cliff at this moment? What she was afraid of really came true. Luo Qingtong had just thought of this when she saw a flash of silver at the bottom of the cliff. On a huge piece of empty land that had been artificially cleared, a man was lying on the ground with his eyes tightly closed. He was dressed in silver and his black hair was scattered all around like entangled seaweed in the deep sea. His dashing eyebrows and starry eyes complemented the man's handsome face even more. It was as if looking at him would be blasphemous. This was the first time Luo Qingtong saw the man's face clearly. Previously, Yi Qianqian's face was always hidden behind a thin layer of mist, so no matter how Luo Qingtong used her eye technique, she could not see it clearly. Now that she finally saw it, it was under such circumstances. Luo Qingtong stepped on the cliff, reducing the acceleration caused by the fall layer by layer. The closer she got, the more she could feel the man's imposing aura and extraordinary handsomeness. It was as if a peerless god had fallen from the sky and was sleeping at the bottom of this cliff. But only Luo Qingtong knew that this man was a person. His face was flawless, so perfect that it was as if he had walked out of a legend that was praised by the world. His peerless appearance was cold, handsome, and indescribably handsome. Luo Qingtong didn't even know how to comment. Coming from the 24th century, Luo Qingtong didn't expect that one day, there would be a man who was so handsome that she didn't even know how to describe him. There was only one person in this world. This was the only thing she could think of. Shua. Luo Qingtong landed beside the man and saw that the ground beneath him had been dyed red with blood. Strangely enough, there wasn't a single wound on the man's body. Where did the blood come from? Could it be that the wound was inside his clothes? Luo Qingtong thought and lifted her hand to open the man's lapel. His exposed chest was as white as jade, and every inch of his skin was like jade, shining with a cold jade light. However, he didn't appear thin and weak. His chest and abdominal muscles were all there. And they were very strong and strong. The touch was also very good. What a monster, Luo Qingtong muttered in her heart, but her eyes looked at the man openly. Anyway, it wasn't the first time she had seen him. What was there to be afraid of? However, there wasn't a single wound on the man's body. Where was the problem? Could it be inside his body? As Luo Qingtong thought about it, she held the man's wrist and transferred her energy into it. Chapter 53. Oh my God! Was he still human? She looked at the man lying on the ground in disbelief. Half of his meridians were broken. As for the remaining half of his meridians, they were breaking apart at a rapid speed. No wonder he didn't have any injuries on his body, and yet he was still bleeding, staining the ground red. That was because his injuries were within his body. This was simply heavenly. Luo Qingtong could naturally tell that the injuries on the man's body were not recent. About a third of his meridians had been broken for some time. Old injuries. And a third of his meridians were newly broken. And they were still breaking. He had fought with the divine sky-connecting beast with such injuries. And he had even beaten the opponent until he was forced to retreat? Luo Qingtong was shocked. But very quickly, she recalled that she had accidentally entered the man's healing spring and immediately coughed lightly. Obviously, the man had been injured at that time. Perhaps it was because she had entered at that time and absorbed a portion of the spring's energy, which resulted in his injuries not being able to fully heal and relapsing during the battle with the divine sky-connecting beast. Luo Qingtong's mouth twitched as she thought about it. Forget it, I owed you before, I'll return it to you now. The man had already sunk into a state of unconsciousness. The injuries on his body were too serious. Luo Qingtong didn't know if his injuries had always been this way, or if something else had happened during the battle with the divine sky-connecting beast. In any case, she had to first heal his broken meridians. Fortunately, if it had been anyone else, they wouldn't have been able to do anything about it. But Luo Qingtong wasn't the same. She had her eye technique, and the broken meridians in the man's body were clearly visible to her. Luo Qingtong could clearly see that although the man's injuries were critical, most of it was because too many of his main meridians were broken, causing his internal energy to be unable to circulate. Otherwise, based on this man's strength, he would definitely be able to suppress his injuries. Otherwise, how could he have been able to fight with the divine sky-connecting beast with such serious injuries? In other words, as long as she repaired the other party's main meridians, the other party would naturally be able to suppress his injuries. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong gathered all the strength in her body and tried her best to repair the man's main meridians. However, when she really started to move, Luo Qingtong realized how difficult it was. She already had the physique of a martial king. The energy in her body was endless. However, in order to repair one of his meridians, she had used up all the energy in her body. Not even the slightest bit of strength was left. After a long time, he finally regained a trace of strength. Holy sh*t. Who said that the meridians of martial artists were the weakest? She definitely wouldn't beat him to death if he stood out. This man was too inhuman. Luo Qingtong spent almost an hour to repair Yi Qianxian's broken main meridians. After she was done, she sat on the ground and couldn't get up for a long time. Her fingers were so weak that she couldn't even move them. Too tired. Was this man made of iron? The meridians in his body were actually so hard. However, Luo Qingtong wasn't completely without benefits. The power in the other party's body was very special. Her energy circulated back and forth in his meridians. Unknowingly, his strength had risen to the level of a martial master. This was the peak of the martial master realm. This meant that Luo Qingtong didn't need to painstakingly accumulate energy. The man's energy had instantly filled up the energy she needed to advance. This was even more useful than the all-nourishment pill. Luo Qingtong's mouth twitched as she thought of this. She looked at the man lying on the ground and suddenly had an impulse to poke his cheek. Hey! Although I threatened and forced you previously, I've also saved your life. We're even now. You're not allowed to cause trouble for me in the future. Do you understand? Chapter 54. Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian stared at each other. Their gazes met in midair. Seeing the light in the man's eyes gradually turn from misty to sober, Luo Qingtong almost pounced forward subconsciously. No! I can't let this man wake up. Luo Qingtong was really scared to death. Is this man really human? He actually woke up immediately with such a serious injury? Luo Qingtong's actions were faster than her brain. Almost at the moment Yi Qianxian completely woke up, she pounced on him heavily. Bang! Oh! A muffled sound and two muffled groans. Yi Qianxian was heavily pounced on by her, the back of his head hitting the ground. He had just barely regained consciousness, but now he fainted again. Luo Qingtong's eyes widened in an instant. She stared at the man's perfect face that was close at hand. His undisguised handsome face was magnified in front of her. But this was not the main point. The main point was, Luo Qingtong's gaze moved down, her lips and the man's thin and cold lips just happened to be pressed together. Damn! 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 Wasn't this too bad of a place to pounce? Why did it have to be this angle, this place? Luo Qingtong thought of the shame and shock in Yi Qianxian's eyes when he fainted just now. She felt depressed in her heart. Damn! This time, her reputation as a perverted woman was completely confirmed. But in fact, she only wanted to pounce on this man until he fainted. In that kind of situation, it was so urgent, how could she have time to think of any angle? If she had been any later, this man would have woken up. Who would have thought that she would have pounced on his lips? It made it seem like she was particularly wretched, deliberately taking advantage of him while he was unconscious. God knew that this was her first kiss. She was also the one who was at a disadvantage. Luo Qingtong was going crazy in her heart. She gloomily got up from the man's body. Forget it, let's hurry up and leave. Otherwise, when this man woke up later, there would be no end to it. What the hell was this? She had been taken advantage of, yet she still felt guilty. However, she was the one who had taken the initiative to throw herself at him. You can't blame anyone else if you want to. Luo Qingtong was about to leave, but then she remembered that she hadn't finished her business yet. She scanned her surroundings and quickly found the dying divine sky-connecting beast in the collapsed forest. The gigantic beast had already shrunk to the size of a few dozen feet. It was on the verge of death as it curled up under a towering tree, whimpering softly. Its voice was so weak that it was almost inaudible. This was also the reason why Luo Qingtong didn't notice it when she went down the cliff. This heaven-connecting divine beast was already on the verge of death. Roar! As if sensing that someone was approaching, the divine connecting beast lifted its head and looked in the direction that Luo Qingtong had come from. It mustered the last bit of strength in its throat and roared weakly. Following that, it let out another painful whine. You're about to die. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes as she looked at it. I can't save you, but I can save the child in your womb. You don't want to take it with you to die, right? Let it form a contract with me and I'll help you save it. That's right, this divine connecting beast was giving birth. If she hadn't heard such a crucial message from the other party's weak roar, Luo Qingtong wouldn't have taken the risk to jump off the cliff. She might not be able to control an adult divine connecting beast, but a baby divine connecting beast was very easy for her to control. This divine connecting beast was having a difficult birth. It wasn't due yet. Because it was seriously injured and on the verge of death, it tried its best to urge the fetus to give birth, but it was stuck in the birth canal. There wasn't enough time to force the birth, which was the path to death. What's more, the mother's body was so weak. Chapter 55. Agree, or die right now. Luo Qingtong looked at it coldly. The divine sky-connecting beast wailed and struggled for a moment. Then, it nodded weakly and gave in. It didn't want its child's fate to be controlled by someone else, but it didn't want its child to die. If it died, it would have nothing left. Compared to that, sacrificing its freedom was nothing. Luo Qingtong walked over. Roar! The divine connecting beast used its claws to gently tug at the corner of her clothes. It was too weak now, so Luo Qingtong wasn't afraid of what it would do to her. Besides, its life was still in her hands. Don't worry, I will treat it well. Looking at the deep worry and pleading in the divine connecting beast's eyes, Luo Qingtong knew what it was trying to say and nodded. Get ready. I will drag it out. But the moment it comes out, you will also lose your life. Are you ready? The divine connecting beast's injuries were too serious, and its spirit had reached the point where it couldn't hold on any longer. The only reason it wasn't dead yet was because of the little guy in its belly. Once Luo Qingtong pulled its child out, it would immediately breathe its last. But even so, Luo Qingtong's eyes didn't show much emotion. This divine connecting beast had wanted to kill her before. If she hadn't met Yi Qianxian, she would have become a corpse by now. The so-called sympathy was completely meaningless to her. To put it bluntly, even if the divine connecting beast didn't die, Luo Qingtong would definitely kill it after saving its child. She didn't need to leave behind a future trouble that might kill her. Roar! The heaven-connecting divine beast nodded. In the next second, in coordination with Luo Qingtong's movements, it fiercely exerted its strength, and a mournful roar instantly reverberated through the bottom of the cliff. Luo Qingtong held the wet little beast in her hands and watched as the divine connecting beast fell to the ground and stopped breathing. Before it died, the divine connecting beast poured its last bit of strength into the little beast's body, so that it wouldn't be too weak due to premature birth. Whoa! The little beast hadn't opened its eyes yet, and it was trembling and crawling on Luo Qingtong's palm. Its shrill cry was very cute. It's quite obedient. Luo Qingtong gently stroked its hair. Just like the contract between her and Little Pig, she bit her index finger and fed her blood to the little guy. The little fellow wiggled its light pink nose and sucked on Luo Qingtong's finger. Its little nose moved up and down, looking very cute. Wang. Just like the contract between her and Little Pig, Luo Qingtong's head buzzed for a moment after the divine connecting beast drank her blood. In the blink of an eye, a six-pointed star brand appeared on the little beast's soft and furless head before fading away. It's done. Feeling the connection between her and the little beast in her mind, Luo Qingtong was satisfied and carried the little guy to the top of the cliff. As for the man lying at the bottom of the cliff, Luo Qingtong wasn't worried at all. That man was so powerful. Even if he was unconscious, no one or beast in the Jiaowu mountain range could do anything to him. But in the end, just in case, Luo Qingtong still set up a simple concealment array around the cliff before she left the cliff, hiding the cliff. After she left, Yi Qianxian woke up. All his memories came back to him. Chapter 56. That woman. Yi Qianxian's handsome face instantly darkened. His status was extraordinary and his strength was amazing. Before Luo Qingtong, no woman had ever been able to get close to him. Everyone who had dared to get close to him and seduce him had all died. But all of this was broken when Luo Qingtong got close to him. That woman had seen him naked and taken liberties with him. Finally, she had dared to kiss him forcefully while he was seriously injured. Yi Qianxian's heart was filled with anger. But this anger was mixed with an indescribable feeling. It was as if he was depressed, as if he was angry, as if, swoosh. At this moment, the air at the bottom of the cliff was distorted. Two figures rushed out almost at the same time. Master! The two of them rushed out and saw the man sitting on the empty ground at the bottom of the cliff. They were shocked and knelt down on the ground. Master, please forgive us for being late. Sensing that the atmosphere around them was not right, the two of them did not even dare to raise their heads. They had sensed that something was wrong with their master, so they immediately used their secret skills to rush over. Fortunately, their master was fine. However, master's current situation seemed to be a little off. Bei Qing secretly raised her eyes and glanced at His Highness. Then, she instantly showed an expression as if she had been struck by lightning. Her master, who had always been dignified and handsome, had a bite mark on his lips. A bite mark. Bei Qing stared at the small bite mark and suddenly felt that she was going to die. The bite mark was very shallow and the strength of the bite was different. No matter how she looked at it, it did not seem like her master had bitten himself. Instead, it seemed like someone had rushed up and kissed and nibbled on his lips to leave such a bite mark. Someone had forcefully kissed her master. Someone had actually dared to forcefully kiss her master. As Bei Qing thought about it, his mind was in a mess. In fact, the bite mark was left by Luo Qingtong, who had pounced on him too hard. But Bei Qing did not know that. Noticing his shocked and aghast expression, Yi Qianming frowned and touched her lips. In an instant, her expression darkened again. That woman had actually left such a bite mark on his lips. What did she think she was? A dog's bone? Yi Qianxian was instantly furious. At the same time, his heart was filled with anger and frustration. He stared coldly at his stupid subordinate in front of him and said coldly, "Have you seen enough? Look. Before Bei Qing could answer, Feng Yu, who was next to him, pulled him hard. "Hey! Feng Yu, why are you dragging me into this?" Bei Qing looked at Feng Yu in confusion. The latter looked at him, speechless. He had seen people with thick nerves, but he had never seen someone with such thick nerves. She would be the world's biggest fool next time. She would be even dumber than Bei. "Master, have you recovered from your internal injuries?" Feng Yu changed the topic. Hearing this, Bei Qing's attention was immediately drawn over. "Yes. Master, we just sensed that your internal injuries had worsened and you had fainted. How are you now?" Yi Qianxian glanced at Feng Yu coldly. He knew that Feng Yu was trying to change the topic for Bei Qing. But it was strange that his internal injuries had healed. Thinking of the woman who had suddenly appeared and kissed him, Yi Qianxian focused his mind on his body and quickly discovered the changes in his body. "My main meridians have been reconnected, so my injuries have been suppressed," he said in a low voice. In other words, his injuries had not healed, but they had been suppressed by someone. Was it that woman? Thinking of Luo Qingtong's face that was so big that she couldn't see it clearly, Yi Qianren frowned. Was she the one who had reconnected his main meridians? But how did she do it? Suddenly, Yi Qianxian's expression froze. He discovered that the main meridians in his body that had been reconnected had undergone a slight change. Let's go back first. He had to check whether the changes in his body were real or not. Chapter 57. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Luo Qingtong dashed through the Jiuwu mountain range as fast as she could. Over the past few days, the situation in the Jiuwu mountain had been extremely chaotic. Many powerful martial artists and soul masters flew across the Jiuwu mountain. Their powerful auras swept across the entire Jiuwu mountain as if they were looking for something. Luo Qingtong knew that they were looking for the inheritance of the immortal Slayer Palace and the whereabouts of the divine sky-connecting beast. It was a pity that both of these things were in her hands. These people were destined to get nothing. Occasionally, their auras would sweep past her. When they realized that she was only a martial master, they would pass by her without hesitation. However, they didn't know that this little martial master, who they didn't even take seriously, was the person they were looking for. The person who had inherited the inheritance of the immortal sect. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Luo Qingtong easily left the Jiuwu mountain range and headed towards Windgaze City. Windgaze City, Easternly Nation. Luo Xining sat in her room and looked at the shining armor in her hands. Luo Xining knew that this armor was left behind by Luo Qingtong's father. Others might think that this set of armor was nothing special. However, Luo Xining knew that if the value of this armor was made known, even the royal family of Tianyu would drool over it. Luo Xining did not know how Luo Qingtong's parents got this armor. However, she knew that right now, this set of armor belonged to her. Even the admission to the Tianyu branch of the Empire of Qin was hers. Luo Qingtong was better than her in every aspect. However, she still ended up with nothing. Everything that Luo Qingtong had was hers. Who asked her to be so stupid? Luo Xining thought as she smiled. She glanced at the recommendation letter for the Tianyu branch of the Empire of Qin. This letter of recommendation was a place to enter Tianyu branch of the Empire of Qin. With this letter of recommendation, even if Luo Xianning was just a young lady of a marquis family from an inferior country, she would still be able to study in the Tianyu branch of the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. It was a gift from the royal family of the Tianyu Empire to Luo Qingtong in case she would be embarrassed as the future crown princess. The Empire of Qin's Holy Academy was the highest cultivation academy of the Empire of Qin's Holy Dynasty. It was also a place that all cultivators dreamed of going to. The strongest martial artists and soul masters were there. He had the best teacher, the most powerful cultivation method and the most practical martial skill. You can learn everything you want there. As long as you are strong enough and have enough talent. Luo Xingning believed that she was talented. If she hadn't been born in the Luo family, she could have entered the Tianyu Branch Academy. Although her cultivation was not as good as Luo Qingtong's, she was actually at the 4th level of the martial master realm. The reason why she hid it was that she wanted to bide her time and keep a trump card. However, she was also a young lady of a marquis family from an inferior country, and her strength was not enough. Luo Xingning had no chance to enter the Tianyu Branch Academy, but Luo Qingtong could. Why? Thinking of this, Luo Xingning broke the jade comb in her hand. She was more talented than Luo Qingtong, and more powerful than Luo Qingtong. Was she destined to be poor all her life because she was not as lucky as Luo Qingtong? She didn't believe in fate. Look! Didn't she kill Luo Qingtong? He even took all of her things for himself. After she finished her cultivation in the Tianyu Branch Academy, she could even go to the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. How could Luo Qingtong compare with her? She was lucky. But having too good of a life was also a kind of disaster. If she wasn't so lucky and offended that person, Luo Xingning wouldn't dare to kill her. After all, Luo Qingtong was protected by Luo Qingtong. Luo Xingning couldn't defeat Luo Qingtong. But there was someone who could. Luo Xingning sneered. She knew that Luo Qingtong would definitely investigate the cause of Luo Qingtong's death, but he would never find out. Chapter 58. Eldest. Eldest Miss? Outside the Luo family's gate, the gatekeeper stared at the girl standing outside the gate. His face turned green and white, as if he had seen a ghost. Eldest Miss. Wasn't she dead? Could it be that she was unwilling to leave, so she came back in broad daylight? Thinking of this, the gatekeeper was so scared that he pissed his pants. His legs went soft and he almost knelt down. Eldest. Eldest Miss. Please, please do me a favor. Please don't lower yourself to my level. I only said a few bad things about you. I deserve to be beaten. I deserve to be beaten. Please don't make things difficult for me. The gatekeeper cried with tears and snot flowing. Originally, he and Luo Qingtong did not have any conflict. When the original body was still alive, she was on good terms with most of the Luo family. For the sake of grandfather Luo, who would not be polite to this eldest miss? Even second madam, who had always been crafty and unforgiving, did not dare to say anything to eldest miss. What's more, eldest miss was the strongest in the younger generation of the Luo family. But who asked eldest miss to meet with an accident later on? When third miss of the second branch gained power, second madam's tail immediately rose to the sky. Now, she was busy packing things to go to the main house. They said that since eldest miss was dead, the mansion would belong to the second branch in the future. Who asked third miss to be the strongest in the younger generation, other than eldest miss? In order to please second madam, they had to say some bad things about eldest miss. Who would have thought that eldest miss would come back from the dead? The gatekeeper was so scared that his soul almost flew away. He almost knelt down and kowtowed to Luo Qingtong. Eldest miss. Please spare me. The guards inside heard the commotion and immediately ran out. When they saw this scene, they immediately gasped. Eldest miss? Didn't they say that eldest miss was dead? Could it be that she really came back from the dead in broad daylight? The group of people felt their hair stand on end. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes and looked at them without saying a word. She wanted to see how many people were in the big Luo family and how many were ghosts. The girl stood quietly outside the door. She didn't say anything and didn't move at all. She looked like a jade sculpture. When Luo Qingtong came back, she first found an inn to take a bath and change her clothes before coming back. Her appearance was already exceedingly beautiful. After receiving the succession of the Immortal Slayer Palace and being baptized by the two artifacts, her physique and temperament had completely changed. Her skin was as white as jade, and under the sunlight, it seemed to be transparent. When the gatekeeper and the guards saw this, their eyes immediately widened. They were even more certain that Luo Qingtong was a ghost. Young miss. Although we know that you died unjustly, the dead cannot be brought back to life. Everyone's fate is like this, you. When he said this, he suddenly swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Luo Qingtong was getting impatient. She raised her head and looked at him. Facing the young girl's pair of black and empty eyes, the guard immediately let out a blood-curdling screech and tumbled backwards. Ghost. Eldest Miss has turned into a ghost and is here to take our lives. In the entire Luo family and even in Windgaze City, who didn't know that Eldest Miss Luo's pair of clear eyes were extremely beautiful. They were once praised as water in a jade cup. But this young girl's eyes were extremely empty. If she wasn't a ghost, what was she? Ah! Luo Qingtong was speechless when she saw those people running away one by one. She hadn't done anything yet. They were already so scared. If she were to make a move, wouldn't these people be scared to death? Right at this moment, a sharp female voice suddenly came from inside. Chapter 59. While they were talking, a stout lady with a sharp and unkind face walked out surrounded by a group of servants. The lady was wearing a golden buyao on her head. She swayed as she walked, but because of her bucket-like body, she looked particularly funny. Who dares to make trouble in the Marquis mansion? As soon as the lady came out, she opened her sharp and high-pitched voice. It was the second madam of the Luo family. At this moment, she was staring at Luo Qingtong with disdain and sneered, "Where did this little b*tch come from? How dare she pretend to be the eldest daughter of the Luo family and make trouble in front of the Marquis mansion? She really doesn't know what's good for her." As the second madam said this, she was indescribably shocked. She looked at Luo Qingtong's fairy-like face and felt that her beauty was breathtaking. This b*tch, she didn't die. Not only that, she seemed to have become more beautiful. The second madam looked at Luo Qingtong's face with jealousy. Others might think that Luo Qingtong was a ghost, but the second madam of the Luo family knew that Luo Xining had poisoned Luo Qingtong and made her blind. Their faces might look alike, but it was not a coincidence that they looked alike and happened to be blind. This b*tch was Luo Qingtong. However, the second madam had just heard the guard say that Luo Qingtong was a ghost. Her mind raced, and she immediately reacted. Luo Qingtong was dead. This was a fact recognized by the whole Luo family. If Grandfather Luo didn't insist that he wouldn't admit Luo Qingtong's death until the body was found, a cenotaph for Luo Qingtong might have been erected. As long as she didn't admit that she was Luo Qingtong and killed her before Grandfather Luo came back, who would know that this b*tch didn't die and came back? Thinking of this, the second madam sneered and said to the guards, "Beat her to death. How dare she play tricks in front of the Marquis mansion?" Before she finished her words, Luo Qingtong's empty and dark eyes had turned to her. Little b*tch. This was a new name. Luo Qingtong's eyes didn't have any expression, but her eyes seemed to be smiling. Through her eyes, she could clearly see the expression on second madam's face, including the shock and viciousness in her eyes for a moment. Luo Qingtong applauded the second madam's performance in her heart. What a vicious heart! Moreover, it was ruthless, decisive, and ruthless. After finding out that she was the real Luo Qingtong's, she wanted to kill her in front of the Marquis mansion. Luo Qingtong of the Marquis mansion, of the Marquis Luo Qingtong's. Of the Luo Qingtong of Luo of the Luo Qingtong, Luo was Luo. In the future, when Grandfather Luo came back, Luo Qingtong could cry and say that it was a mistake. Who asked her to be blind? It was pardonable for her to admit that she was wrong. What a scheming woman. No wonder she could teach Luo Xinning to be such a scheming b*tch. It was said that she was not the first wife of Luo Qingtong, but was promoted by Luo Qingtong after Luo Xinning was favored by Luo Qingtong. This pair of mother and daughter, in front of the original host, pretended to be kind mother and sister and coaxed the original host. Now that Luo Xinning was in power, she showed her big tail. Luo Qingtong looked at the second madam in front of her with a faint smile. The joy in her empty and dark eyes showed how dangerous she was at the moment. Chapter 60. Second Aunt, you're such a good second aunt. As soon as Luo Qingtong finished speaking, her figure flashed and teleported in front of second madam. Smack! She slapped second madam viciously. You! Hurry up and stop her! Second madam shrieked. She did not expect that a blind person like Luo Qingtong would be able to locate her by hearing her voice and appear in front of her in an instant. Are these servants all dead? They actually allowed her to appear in front of her like this. However, second madam did not know that even if all these people were blocking her, Luo Qingtong would still be able to reach her if she wanted to. She would slap her a few times if she wanted to. Smack, smack, smack. The air was filled with the sound of slap after slap. Speaking of which, it was strange. The moment the second madam opened her mouth, all the servants rushed over. How dare you? How dare you hit second madam? Quick! Catch her! However, no matter how they rushed over, Luo Qingtong's figure was always able to move slightly to the side and avoid all their movements. She stood in a blind spot that no one could reach and slapped second madam again and again. The etiquette, filial piety, and hierarchy in this world were completely useless to Luo Qingtong. She was just a concubine. Did she really think that she was an elder? So what if she was an elder? If she did not respect her elders, she did not deserve to be called an elder. So what if she hit her? Luo Qingtong sneered. Even as second madam screamed again and again, the strength of her slaps did not lessen at all. Every single one of them was perfectly executed. Every time second madam was slapped, she would spit out a tooth. In just a short while, almost half of second madam's teeth had been knocked out. Now, even her screams were leaking out. I'm screwed. I'm screwed. At first, second madam was still yelling at Luo Qingtong and the servants, but in the end, she could only cry bitterly and beg for mercy. However, the words that came out of his mouth were completely leaked. Luo Qingtong calmly dodged the attacks of the servants. As she fought, she asked faintly, "What did you say? I can't hear you clearly. Speak louder." However, most of second madam's teeth had been knocked out by her. The louder he spoke, the more air would leak out. How could he explain it clearly? As for the guards and maids around her, they couldn't even touch Luo Qingtong. Second madam was so angry that she cursed these people in her heart for being ingrates, helping Luo Qingtong to bully her. Otherwise, with her strength as a sixth-stage martial master, how could she not dodge this brat's attack? That's right. Luo Qingtong was a bad girl. Every time she dodged, the route and angle she took was very strange. The attacks of the guards and maids cancelled each other out. Some of them even attacked second madam and blocked most of her attacks, allowing Luo Qingtong to slap her more easily. Just as second madam was about to collapse from Luo Qingtong's slaps and almost all of her teeth were falling out, Luo Xinning, who had just finished washing up, rushed over. "Big sister. What are you doing?" Seeing this scene, Luo Xinning was shocked and hurried forward to stop Luo Qingtong. Her voice also successfully stopped the attacks of the maids and guards. "Eldest. Eldest miss? This girl that they mistook as a ghost was really their eldest miss? But, didn't second madam say that she was a liar? Chapter 61. Dong. Seeing everyone's gaze on her, second madam couldn't take it any more and fell to the ground with a thud. She had lost all her face today. She was beaten up at the gate of the Lord Protector's manor. That was fine. However, no matter how hard she tried, she still could not deny Luo Qingtong's identity. Why was she beaten up like this? Second madam could not take it and fainted. Third sister. Luo Qingtong tilted her head and looked in Luo Xinning's direction. She raised her hand and hooked her finger at a servant beside her. Handkerchief. The servant girl hurriedly handed over the handkerchief in her hand. First miss, I'm sorry. The servant girl apologized softly. She had participated in the attack on Luo Qingtong just now. It's okay. Luo Qingtong did not want to argue with these people. She had already dealt with second madam. Moreover, these people's previous attacks had all been directed at second madam. With second madam's temperament, she would definitely vent her anger on them after she woke up. At that time, whether or not they could avoid this calamity would depend on whether or not they were smart enough. Luo Qingtong took the handkerchief and wiped her hands carefully. Then, she threw the handkerchief on the ground like it was rubbish. She smiled and lifted her head. She looked in the direction of Luo Xianning's voice and said, "Good sister, we haven't seen each other for a long time." Luo Qingtong was not wrong at all. The person that the original owner hated the most, other than the royal family of Tianyu, was Luo Xinning. Although Luo Qingtong did not want to be trapped by the original owner's obsession, she hated scheming bitches. And Luo Xinning was a classic example. And she was the type that she despised the most. If you say you are smart, then so be it. If you have ambition, then so be it. But she shouldn't have used and stepped on the original owner, who was sincere to her, to get to the top. If it was not for the original Luo Qingtong, Luo Xinning would have been killed by the indifference of the backyard when she was weak and sick. Including her talent and strength, which one of them wasn't given to her by the original owner? Without the original owner, would she have precious herbs to treat illnesses? Could she find a pharmacist to treat her illness? Without the original owner, how could her martial arts talent be activated? What a sickly person. What future did she have? Not to mention the fact that the original owner had secretly given her her own cultivation resources, allowing her to have her current strength. The host was old man Luo's most beloved granddaughter, the only child of the first branch. She was the future fifth princess of the Tianyu Empire. The resources she had were dozens of times more than the young misses of ordinary low-level marquis manors. Even the people of the Eastern Fence royal family were envious of Luo Qingtong's treatment and resources. They would think of ways to get close to her. However, because the original owner pitted Luo Xianning's body, she gave most of her resources to her weak and delicate sister. The resources that Luo Xinning received were more than double that of Luo Qingtong. It was because of the nourishment from such a large amount of resources and herbs that Luo Xinning's poor constitution did not affect her martial arts cultivation and advancement. Without the original owner, Luo Xinning was not even worth a fart. How could she plot against the original owner and replace her position? But what did she do? She destroyed the original owner's cultivation and blinded her eyes. Finally, she threw her to a group of unknown people in black. Did she hate the original owner so much? Why did she hate her? Without the original owner, she was even worse than a guard dog in the Luo family. She could take the position of the successor of the Marquis Manor, but she should not do it at the cost of hurting the original owner. If she really had the ability to replace the original owner, would she not be afraid of not being able to do it? Luo Qingtong sneered. Chapter 62. Hearing Luo Qingtong's words, Luo Xinning's face turned pale. She realized that Luo Qingtong was very different from what she remembered. After confirming that Luo Qingtong had returned alive, Luo Xinning was very anxious at first. She did not expect Luo Qingtong to be so lucky to come back alive under such circumstances. If she had known, she would not have exposed her identity. However, Luo Xinning only panicked for a moment and quickly calmed down. She knew Luo Qingtong very well. She was a woman who was so kind that she was almost stupid and weak. As long as she made up a lie and said that the person who hurt Luo Qingtong was not her, but someone else, and cried, Luo Qingtong's heart would soften very quickly. She had so many tricks up her sleeve. How could she not handle such a stupid woman? But now, Luo Xinning was not so sure. She realized that Luo Qingtong had changed. The girl stood at the bottom of the stairs and looked up at her. She was in such a weak position, but she still looked like she was standing at the peak. She just looked at her with a faint smile on her lips, which made Luo Xinning's heart skip a beat. You are not Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong would not talk to her like this. She would not have such a cold aura. Yes. Of course I am not Luo Qingtong. The girl's words were shocking. After dying once, how can I still be that stupid Luo Qingtong who did not even know how she died? Don't you think so? My good sister? The smile on Luo Qingtong's lips was very bright. Although it was spring and summer and the weather was slightly warm, Luo Xinning could not help but feel a chill in her bones. The girl's words were flawless. However, Luo Xinning knew that this person was no longer the Luo Qingtong in her memory. In other words, after going through a life and death situation, Luo Qingtong had completely changed. Luo Xinning could no longer be controlled by her. Luo Xinning clearly recognized this point. Her entire body instantly stiffened. No one knew better than her what it meant for Luo Qingtong to not be stupid. This meant that her status in the Luo family was about to plummet. This meant that she was about to be pushed to the bottom of the mud. Fortunately, she had already gotten what she wanted. Luo Qingtong wanted to take it back. She was dreaming. It didn't matter even if Luo Qingtong wasn't stupid. She couldn't find any evidence that she had harmed her. Without evidence, she couldn't do anything to him. And by relying on the things in his hands, he could also surpass Luo Qingtong in the future. He wanted to let her know that even without her, he would still be able to walk his own path. It seems that you have some misunderstanding about me. Luo Xianning pursed her lips and took a step back, pretending to be weak. I know that big sister hates me for suggesting that you go to the 9 Magi Mountain for training. But I didn't expect the 9 Magi Mountain to have such a huge change. Luo Xianning's voice was gentle and filled with regret. Fortunately, big sister, you are fine. Otherwise, I don't know how much I would regret and blame myself. However, I also want to thank big sister. Because I was too sad about your departure, I realized that my martial arts level had broken through the shackles and increased by a few levels. As she spoke, she looked at Luo Qingtong. Slowly, she enunciated each word clearly, I am now a stage 4 martial master. Big sister, are you happy for me? When Luo Xinning mentioned stage 4 martial master, her eyes flashed with pride. She was very proud. Chapter 63. Luo Xinning chose to reveal her cultivation level at this moment to provoke Luo Qingtong. She wanted to let her know that she was no longer the strongest in the younger generation of the Luo family. She was much more powerful and talented than Luo Xinning. Luo Xinning would only be able to make full use of her things in her hands. Luo Qingtong did not know what Luo Xinning was thinking. She was looking at her dear sister playfully. Luo Xinning did not know that Luo Qingtong could see even though she was blind. Hence, she did not hide her emotions at all. Luo Qingtong looked at the pride and arrogance in her eyes and suddenly felt that it was good that her eyes were not cured for a while. At least, these people who thought that she was blind and could not see anything were being played like monkeys in front of her. Oh, she let out a long and heavy sigh. Level 4 Martial Master. Very powerful. But sister, you should really thank me. Over the years, I have given you more than half of the resources from the Tianyu royal family and grandfather. Such resources are enough for an ordinary family to cultivate a general. You are only a level 4 martial master now. You have to work harder. Otherwise, people will think that I have fed all those resources to the dogs. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she followed Luo Xinling's voice and patted her shoulder. A trace of undetectable energy entered Luo Xinling's body from where her hand touched. She did not tell Luo Xinling that she was already a level 9 martial master. The 9 Shaman Mountain was in chaos and the inheritance of the Immortal Slayer Palace was born. She was lucky enough to not die. Was she afraid that people would not know that she was the one who obtained the inheritance of the Immortal Slayer Palace? Luo Qingtong was not that stupid. If Luo Xinling wanted to show off, let her be. Sooner or later, she would know that the things she was proud of and showing off were not worth mentioning to him at all. Luo Qingtong walked past Luo Xinling with a smile on her face. The energy that she injected into Luo Xinling's body was not destructive. Instead, it triggered all the hidden injuries in her body. It would be fine if Luo Xinling did not fight with all her might. But once she did, the hidden danger in her body would erupt. At that time, all of her strength would disappear in a short period of time. Luo Qingtong would not let Luo Xinling die so easily. There were too many ways to make someone feel pain and regret. Luo Xinling should be prepared to take it one by one. Otherwise, how could she be worthy of the betrayal and torture that the original owner suffered? Killing people with a hard knife isn't scary. Killing with a soft knife was torturous. She had killed Luo Xinling so quickly. How was she going to catch the big fish behind her? Luo Qingtong entered the marquis's residence, leaving Luo Xinling standing behind her stiffly. The surrounding crowd was already stunned. Did they hear wrongly? Eldest Miss was calling third Miss a dog? Everyone looked at the battle between Luo Qingtong and Luo Xinling in shock. They suddenly felt that Luo Qingtong had become so domineering after surviving the disaster. This was their first time seeing such a dazzling young miss. In the past, Luo Xinling was beautiful, but she always looked like an extremely beautiful plastic flower. Although it was pleasing to the eye, they always felt that something was missing. Now, Luo Xinling was indescribable. It was as if all the flowers in front of her paled in comparison. Domineering. Agile. Flying. Chapter 64. What was even more shocking was what Luo Qingtong said. Based on what she said, Luo Qingtong was able to become the second most powerful person in the Luo family because Luo Qingtong had given half of her resources to her. And Luo Qingtong did not make good use of it. Wasted half of it? Thinking about it, everyone looked at Luo Xinling strangely. They never knew of such a thing. They always thought that Luo Qingtong was extremely talented. Now, it seemed like that was not the case at all. Luo Qingtong was only able to cultivate a stage 4 martial master with the resources of a general. And it was only after Luo Qingtong got into trouble. This made them suspect Luo Xinling's intentions. Did she improve her abilities out of sadness or out of happiness? Also, they heard that she was in a hurry to inherit Luo Qingtong's things after Luo Qingtong got into trouble. She even angered Luo Qingtong. The servants did not know about the incident in the backyard. But this did not stop them from making some guesses. Instantly, they looked at Luo Xinling with even more disdain. Luo Qingtong was really good at pretending. She used Luo Qingtong's resources to improve herself, but after Luo Qingtong got into trouble, she immediately took over. She was even flaunting her abilities in front of Luo Qingtong. How could she be so shameless? If not for Luo Qingtong, would she be where she is today? A man whose heart is not content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. She was provoking Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong was blinded because Luo Qingtong got into trouble during her breakthrough in the Nine Magi Mountain. Luo Qingtong thought that Luo Qingtong had no chance to make a comeback. When the servants thought of this, they despised Luo Xinning in their hearts. To think that they used to think that Luo Qingtong was a good person. They did not expect her to be so scheming. If not for the fact that Luo Xinning could not control what happened on the Nine Magi Mountain, they would have thought that she was the one who planned Luo Qingtong's accident. This kind of vicious woman was really scary. Seeing how everyone was looking at her, Luo Xinning was so angry that she clenched her fists. She was extremely frustrated. What Luo Qingtong said just now was like a knife stabbing into her heart. This was impossible. How could Luo Qingtong be so kind as to give her half of the resources? Luo Qingtong did not believe it. Luo Xinning sneered. After dying once, Luo Qingtong has become smarter. Did he think that he would be able to defeat him just like that? Although he was surprised that she didn't die, her eyes were still ruined. If she was blind, what could she use to compete with her? Even grandfather Luo's protection was useless. Thinking of this, Luo Xianning felt a little better. What are you all standing there for? Hurry up and carry second madam back. She looked coldly at the servants and said. The latter and the others didn't dare to say anything and hurriedly carried the unconscious second madam back. In the main courtyard of the Marquis Manor, Luo Qingtong stepped inside and was instantly dazzled by the colorful decorations. She stared coldly at the main courtyard, which had been modified into a garish state by someone and no longer had its usual tranquil appearance. She raised her hand to call in the guards who were guarding outside. Did someone touch my main courtyard? She asked directly. There's something wrong with this place. Luo Qingtong stared coldly at the guards. The latter and the others were shocked by her stare. They didn't know why, but after eldest Miss returned from the disaster, she gave off a completely different vibe. Staring at them like this, they felt as if they were in an abyss and didn't dare to hide anything. Eldest Miss. It's second master and second madam. You weren't here, all right. I got it. Luo Qingtong raised her hand to stop them from talking. It seemed that the second branch thought that she was dead, so they couldn't wait to take over the main courtyard. Luo Qingtong's eyes were filled with mockery. The original owner was indeed dead, but she, Luo Qingtong, was still alive. As long as she was alive, she wouldn't allow anyone to bully her. Chapter 65. Yes. Those guards were glanced at by Luo Qingtong's hollow eyes. They didn't know why, but they suddenly felt a deep chill in their hearts. He had no doubt that Luo Qingtong would do what she said. And when the other party said, throw them out, it was most likely not just to throw them out. She wanted to sweep them out of the house. Thinking of this, the guards immediately took action. Although First Miss was blind, it seemed that her martial cultivation was limited to this realm. But a skinny camel was still bigger than a horse. Not to mention that First Miss was deeply favored by the old master, the guards didn't dare to neglect her marriage with the fifth prince of the Tianyu Empire. In comparison, offending Third Miss was nothing. Even if Third Miss might inherit the Lord Protector's manor in the future, it was a matter of the future. What's more, so what if she inherited the Lord Protector's manor? First Miss was the future wife of the fifth prince of the Tianyu Empire. It was said that the fifth prince had been admitted to the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin and was one of the few heaven-grade students. He had a promising future. How could Third Miss compare with First Miss? Thinking of this, the guards' movements were indescribably nimble. In just a short while, they had cleaned up all the things that the second household had done. Including the cages, cabinets, and furnishings that second madam had moved in advance, they were all cleared out. First miss, everything has been cleared out. Those guards carefully said to Luo Qingtong, who was sitting next to them. Have you cleared out all those messy things? Luo Qingtong glanced at the messy piles of things and saw many of second madam's favorite things among them. Her good second aunt really couldn't wait. She moved her home here just like that? She slowly raised her lips with a smile and said lightly, "Are they all here?" "Very good, then burn them all. It's also good to let people know that not just any trash can move into my main courtyard." As long as Luo Qingtong was here, she wouldn't allow anyone to touch the main courtyard of the Luo family. Burn them? When the group of guards heard this, they thought that they had misheard. This belonged to second madam and the others. Although it didn't belong to third miss, but it still belonged to the second branch. Among them, there were obviously a lot of second madam's beloved items. They were all going to be burned? These guards were not in the front yard and did not know that Luo Qingtong and Luo Xining were not on good terms. They still thought that Luo Qingtong was still the young lady who indulged Luo Xining in the past. But he didn't expect Luo Qingtong to give such an order. They were still thinking that after Luo Qingtong's anger subsided, they would send the things back to the second branch. After all, the first miss was blind. In the future, the one who would inherit the Luo family would most likely be the third miss. Since they lived in the Luo family, they naturally had to curry favor with them. When they heard Luo Qingtong's order, they were stunned. "What? I can't order you around?" Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and stared at them with her empty black eyes. No. Looking into Luo Qingtong's eyes, the guards didn't dare to say anything. Burn them. Burn them. At this time, who dared to hesitate? No matter how blind First Miss was, her identity as the future wife of the fifth prince was enough to crush all of Luo Xining's glory and pride. The group of guards quickly took action. In the courtyard of the second branch, Luo Xining had just sent the unconscious second madam to her room when she saw the fire in the main courtyard. Chapter 66. Luo Xining suddenly remembered that second madam had said that Luo Qingtong was dead and the Luo family would belong to them sooner or later. So, she had already packed her things and was ready to move into the main yard. Now, the fire in the main yard, could it be? Her heart skipped a beat and she hurriedly walked out of the door. Hurry up. Let's go and see what's going on in the main yard. Luo Xining had a bad feeling in her heart. The Luo family would not be on fire for no reason. Not to mention the main yard, which was such an important place. Don't tell me it's Luo Qingtong. Just when Luo Xining was thinking of this, she heard the voice of the maid outside hurriedly. Third miss. Third miss. Something bad happened. Eldest miss cleared out all the things belonging to our second branch in the main courtyard and burned them all. Luo Xining's mind went blank the moment she heard the maid's words. Luckily, she didn't move there. And the things she got, including the heirloom armor and the recommendation letter for Tianyu branch of the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin, were still in her room. Luo Xining's heart pounded as she thought of this. She felt indescribably lucky. Then, she felt a chill in her heart. Luo Qingtong was really different from before. If she was the old Luo Qingtong, she would never do such a thing. No matter how much she hated her, she would not vent her anger on the things in the second branch. After dying once, she was really different. But Luo Qingtong, even if you've changed, so what? I will never give away the things that are in my hands. Ah! My baby! Second madam just woke up. Hearing the maid's words, she rolled her eyes and almost fainted again. That little bitch who deserves to be hacked to death. How dare you burn all of my things? How dare she? How can she treat her elders like this? Second Madam thought of her precious rouge, face powder, jewelry, and clothes. A lot of them were from Luo Qingtong. As the future wife of the fifth prince of the Tianyu Empire, she could always get a lot of good things. Luo Qingtong didn't ask for it herself. It was the royal family of Tianyu Empire who asked for it. There was also the filial piety from the aristocratic families of Eastern Fence Country and the flattery from the royal family of Eastern Fence Country. Luo Qingtong didn't have a mother, so naturally, those things were given to Second Madam, who was good at disguising herself. The latter had taken a lot of benefits from Luo Qingtong. Not only that, many clothes and jewelry better than those sent by Tianyu Empire were from the things left by Luo Qingtong's mother. The Second Madam was good at acting. Together with Luo Xinning, they had coaxed the Luo Qingtong so well that she would give them her heart. Today, these things were all burned by Luo Qingtong. Unable to bear the shock, Second Madam fainted again. In the main courtyard, Luo Qingtong looked at the quiet main courtyard which had been restored to its original appearance and nodded with satisfaction. Good. There are no more people's breaths. The guards lowered their heads and didn't dare to speak. They had also just found out that the things they had burned were Second Madam's lifeblood. Among them were many treasures of Second Master. They were doomed. But they couldn't blame this on Luo Qingtong. After all, Miss Luo was blind and couldn't see anything at all, right? If they had known, they would have told Miss that those things were important to the second branch. They complained in their hearts, but they didn't dare to show it on their faces. At this moment, a loud and clear voice choked with sobs suddenly rang out from outside. Chapter 67. A sonorous and burly figure rushed in from the outside. Before Luo Qingtong could stand up, she was hugged tightly by the burly figure. Qingtong. Grandpa's Qingtong. When old Master Luo received the news that Luo Qingtong was back, he rushed back to the Luo family without even taking off his blood-red armor. He had been searching for Luo Qingtong's whereabouts all this time. The Jiaowu mountain range was huge. With the appearance of the immortal Sect's ruins, there was an endless stream of people coming here. It was not easy to search. There were corpses everywhere. Old Master Luo was worried about whether he could find a corpse or not. If he found a corpse, he was afraid of seeing his beloved granddaughter die. If he couldn't find a corpse, he was afraid that Luo Qingtong's corpse would not even be whole. He was tormented by the tossing and turning. Now that he was hugging Luo Qingtong, he could feel the warmth of her body in his arms. Instantly, tears welled up in his eyes. Qingtong. I'm sorry. It's Grandpa's fault. I shouldn't have left you alone at home. If he was not at home, Qingtong would not have gone to the Jiaowu mountain alone to break through. If he was at home, he would have stopped her. Fortunately, she was fine. Otherwise, he would never forgive himself. Luo Qingtong was hugged by old Master Luo. She did not know what to feel. She could have avoided old Master Luo's embrace just now. But for some reason, when she saw this white-haired old man with red eyes and tears in his eyes, she could not move her feet away. Grandpa, Luo Qingtong called out softly. She felt the old man's body tremble even more. The robe on his shoulders was soaked. It was obvious how sad and emotional old Master Luo was. Luo Qingtong remembered that old Master Luo had always been very stern and solemn in the original owner's memory. The original owner was even a little afraid of old Master Luo. She always felt that Grandpa was too strict. She preferred to be with Luo Xinning and Second Madam because they treated her well. Now, who was the one who treated her well? Luo Xinning and Second Madam treated her well, but after killing her, they couldn't wait to take over her position. And old man Luo, the strict and fierce grandfather in the original host's heart, was looking for her everywhere. Isn't the situation at the Nine Magi Mountain dangerous? Old Master Luo was just a marquis from a small, inferior country. If he accidentally angered the powerful people from the powerful countries, he might be in danger. In this family, who was the one who was truly good to her, the original host really couldn't see it clearly. "Grandpa, don't cry. I'm fine. Look, I'm back safely." Luo Qingtong softened her voice. She didn't have any relatives in her previous life. She was abandoned as soon as she was born because she was born with a pair of blood-red eyes. It was too scary. Luo Qingtong was raised by a beggar who picked up garbage. However, that beggar's life was too unlucky. When Luo Qingtong finally realized that her blood eyes ability could allow them to live a good life, that beggar finally died of a serious illness due to years of hunger and cold. From then on, Luo Qingtong was alone in this world. She was eccentric, evil, willful, and did things her own way. Because in that world, there was no one worth her attention. After Luo Qingtong became famous, her biological parents came to find her and wanted to acknowledge her. Unfortunately, she didn't care. Thinking of that unpleasant experience, Luo Qingtong's face suddenly turned cold. Then, she was pulled back to reality by old Master Luo's action of hugging her and crying. "Alright, Grandpa, I'm really fine. When did you become so childish?" Luo Qingtong's face was full of helplessness, but her heart was moved. "Original host, if you don't cherish this family, then give it to me." Chapter 68. How can you say you're fine when you're blind? Do you have to come back with a broken arm or a broken leg to be considered fine? Old Master Luo's eyes were bloodshot as he said in exasperation. "Tell Grandpa, who did this to you? Was it Luo Xinning?" "Grandpa, it's okay. It's all in the past. Those who hurt me will get their retribution," Luo Qingtong said lightly. Rays of bloody light suddenly flashed in the depths of her empty and blank eyes. She was the retribution of those people. The original host was dead and the one who came back was her, the supreme pupil of the 24th century, evil pupil, Luo Qingtong. She would take back everything that they owed the original host. "Grandpa didn't protect you well." Grandfather Luo's face was dejected. How could he not know that Luo Qingtong didn't talk about it? It meant that it had something to do with Luo Xinning. If not, why didn't she tell him? But Luo Qingtong didn't protect Luo Xinning anymore, which made Grandfather Luo very happy. If Luo Qingtong came back and said good things for Luo Xinning, he would be furious. But now, it seemed like his Qingtong had escaped death once. She could see everything clearly. This was good. This was better than anything. After your accident, Luo Xinning used your reputation as a hostage to snatch the Luo family's heirloom armor and the recommendation letter for you to enter the Tianyu branch of the Great Qin Holy Academy. At that time, Grandpa thought that she had something to do with your accident. Now it seems that I was right. But it doesn't matter. She can't steal the real heritage of our Luo family. Afraid of touching Luo Qingtong's sore spot, Grandfather Luo didn't mention anything about her blindness and pulled her back to his yard. "Come. Qingtong, feel it. This is the real heritage of our Luo family. It's the symbol of our Luo family's glory. It's something that Luo Xinning could never imagine. She can snatch the heirloom armor and the recommendation letter, but she can't snatch these things. You don't even have the right to know these things. In the future, these things will all be yours." Luo Qingtong was pulled into a secret room by Grandfather Luo. The design of the secret room was very clever and secretive. Even with Luo Qingtong's Do technique, she was still confused for a moment and did not see the existence of the secret room before Grandfather Luo activated the mechanism. The secret room was filled with bookshelves. Luo Qingtong's gaze swept over the bookshelves. To her surprise, she discovered that the bookshelves were filled with soul technique manuals and cultivation experiences. The Luo family's true foundation was actually this? Luo Qingtong's gaze stopped on a soul technique manual. She was shocked to discover that this soul technique manual taught I techniques. The Luo clan's soul technique manuals were actually for cultivating I techniques? Shared the same origin as her? Luo Qingtong walked directly to the bookshelves. Grandfather Luo was afraid that she couldn't see, so he quickly went forward to help her. However, he was stunned by Luo Qingtong's abnormally quick action. He watched as she walked straight to the first row of bookshelves and pulled out a soul technique manual. He was surprised and happy at the same time. "Qingtong, your eyes," Grandfather Luo spoke carefully, afraid that he would accidentally touch Luo Qingtong's sore spot. However, Luo Qingtong's action was too surprising. Even if he knew that Luo Qingtong was blind, he still had to ask. What if? Chapter 69. Luo Qingtong turned around and smiled when she saw how nervous he was. "Grandpa, I didn't have the time to tell you before. After I went blind, I suddenly learned a secret technique that allowed me to use my mental strength to look at people. That was how I was able to escape from the dangerous 9 Magi Mountains. I was still wondering what was going on and didn't know how to tell you. Now I know. It's because of the Luo family's history." Luo Qingtong had cleverly combined her own pupil technique with the Luo family's pupil technique. She had just taken a look and realized that the Luo family's pupil technique was very profound compared to the people in this world. But to her, it was too simple. She was born with a pair of blood-red eyes and the use of pupil technique seemed to be ingrained in her bones. The Luo family's pupil technique was nothing in front of her. But Luo Qingtong would not say this out loud. The Luo family's pupil technique gave her the best cover. Even if she used all sorts of pupil techniques in the future, no one would suspect her. Reincarnating in someone else's body was too strange. Even though there were all kinds of strange things in this strange world, Luo Qingtong didn't want anyone to know her secret. "I see." Old Master Luo was very excited. "No wonder you were able to escape from death. The Luo family is really blessed." Old Master Luo did not doubt Luo Qingtong's words at all. Luo Qingtong was the most likely candidate in the Luo family to be able to cultivate the pupil technique passed down by their ancestors. Her clear eyes were extremely in line with the characteristics of the vision of the eyes that had been passed down from the ancestors of her clan. It was said that such a person was born with the potential to cultivate pupil techniques. In the future, she would definitely succeed and restore the Luo family to its former glory. If not for the fact that Luo Qingtong and Luo Xining were too close, the Luo family would not have been able to cultivate the secret technique. And the ancestors had decreed that the direct descendants of the Luo family had to wait until they were 15 years old and confirmed that they had the talent to cultivate ocular techniques before they could know of the existence of this secret chamber. Old Master Luo would not have waited until now to tell Luo Qingtong about it. In fact, if not for the fact that Luo Qingtong was blind and broke with Luo Xining, Grandfather Luo would not have broken the ancestral rule in advance and brought her here. In his opinion, Luo Qingtong's eyes were already destroyed. Even if she couldn't cultivate the Luo clan's eye techniques, it would be good for her to be able to cultivate other soul techniques. His only granddaughter had already died once, and it wasn't easy for her to come back alive. Why was he still clinging to those ancestral rules? Therefore, Master Luo brought Luo Qingtong here without hesitation, regardless of whether she was under 15 years old or not. But he did not expect that Luo Qingtong would give him such a big surprise. Although his granddaughter was blind, she had accidentally awakened their ancestors' ocular talent. This was simply a blessing in disguise. Good. 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 Grandfather Luo was so excited that tears filled his eyes. "Qingtong, grandfather is relieved now. You're not really blind. As for your eyes, when you're stronger in the future, you'll be able to find a way to cure it. Grandfather is so happy." Grandfather Luo was very excited. Luo Qingtong heard him and smiled without saying anything. She didn't need to wait for her cultivation to increase. As long as she could find the antidote, the poison in her eyes would be cured immediately. Then, she would be able to see. However, Luo Qingtong was not in a hurry to tell Grandfather Luo about this. Her ocular skills were too heaven-defying. It would be too eye-catching if she revealed it now. It was better to take it slowly and let Grandfather Luo slowly accept the fact that she had changed. At the same time, she could also improve herself. Chapter 70. Grandpa, you don't have to tell anyone that I'm not blind, Luo Qingtong said to Old Master Luo. Her empty and vacant eyes were curved and indescribably sweet. However, the smile at the corner of her lips was indescribably crafty and quick-witted. Just let others think that I'm blind. Sometimes, the heart is only bright when the eyes are blind. Grandpa, don't you think so? Luo Qingtong looked at Old Master Luo meaningfully. Old Master Luo was stunned for a moment, then he understood what Luo Qingtong meant. She wanted to use her blindness to see many things that she couldn't see normally. After all, if she was blind, many things wouldn't be hidden from her. Or rather, she didn't need to hide from her anymore. Okay. Grandpa will listen to you. Old Master Luo was very happy, and he agreed with a laugh. To him, Luo Qingtong had the ability to protect herself and be wary of others. This was something that he was very happy to see. After all, Luo Qingtong was good at everything, but her personality was too soft and gentle, and she was too easy to bully. If not for that, she wouldn't have been hurt by Luo Xinning. Thinking of Luo Xinning, Old Master Luo's face darkened. Although he told Luo Qingtong not to care about Luo Xinning, it was because Luo Qingtong was blind. He didn't want to agitate Luo Qingtong, so he didn't mention anything about Luo Xinning and the two things that she stole. Now that everything was fine and Qingtong had activated the talent left by her ancestors, it was time to return the two things that Luo Xinning stole. Qingtong, I didn't tell you about the two items that Luo Xinning stole. Forget about the armor. Although it's rare, there's no way to use it. Even if Luo Xinning had it, she wouldn't be able to activate its full power. But the recommendation letter from the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin is very important to you. The Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin is the only institution of higher learning in the Holy Dynasty. The Empire of Qin Holy Dynasty has a boundless territory and countless experts. 99% of them are from the Sacred Institute of the Empire of Qin. The Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin had countless rare treasures, as well as countless powerful cultivation techniques and martial arts techniques. More importantly, there was the most systematic teaching there. With the guidance of the Holy Dynasty's strongest expert. This is the most important thing. Old Master Luo was very serious when he said this. Although you have the inheritance of the Luo family, it is still not enough. Qingtong, Grandpa doesn't know soul arts. Even if I did, with my strength, I can't teach you either. You can only go to the Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin. You'll have better achievements there. The Tianyu branch of the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin is a branch of the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin in the Tianyu Empire. You'll only be qualified to enter the Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin after you enter it. The Empire of Qin Holy Dynasty has countless territories. There are 8 empires, 3,000 high-class countries, 8,000 middle-class countries, and tens of thousands of low-class countries. Only a few people can enter the Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin. Qingtong, this place in the Tianyu branch is very important to you. You can't lose it. I'll go find Luo Xinning now and ask her to return what belongs to you. Old Master Luo said firmly. Wait, Grandpa. Luo Qingtong stopped Old Master Luo. She was surprised. She didn't expect the place in the Tianyu branch of the Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin to be so important. No wonder Luo Xinning didn't hesitate to betray the original host and ignore all the benefits that the original host had given her. It turned out that there was such a benefit in this. Chapter 71. If she entered the Tianyu Branch Academy, wouldn't she soar to the sky? That way, she wouldn't be afraid even if she offended the old man. As for the benefits that the original owner gave her, how could it compare to the benefits of entering the Tianyu Branch Academy? Luo Xianning's ambition was really big. Luo Qingtong searched her mind and found that the place to enter the Tianyu Branch Academy of the Empire of Qin wasn't something that just anyone could get. It was a special reward given to the fifth prince after he was selected as a heaven-grade student of the Empire of Qin. Because Luo Qingtong was his fiancée and the future fifth prince's wife, the final place was given to her by the academy. Luo Qingtong didn't know how it was done, but she was the one who got the benefit. There was no doubt about it. Obviously, Luo Xianning was envious of him. This place to enter the Tianyu Branch Academy allowed Luo Qingtong to enter even if she didn't meet the requirements for the time being. This was equivalent to the special admission of the universities in the 24th century. She had the privilege of being exempted from the exam. This was interesting. Luo Qingtong smiled meaningfully. The original owner wasn't liked by the fifth prince and the Tianyu royal family. She wasn't his wife either. She was just a fiancée. How could such a place be given to her? Was it really not done on purpose? And the person who sent people to deal with the original owner was very rough. It didn't look like they were used to doing such things. How could the Tianyu royal family, as the royal family of the empire, only have such methods? Obviously, this was just someone acting on their own initiative. Luo Qingtong thought about it casually and guessed the truth of the matter. She smiled playfully, "Grandpa, if Luo Xianning wants those things, let her have them. Some people don't climb higher, how can they fall more miserably?" She already had a plan in her mind. She definitely wouldn't want that place to enter the Tianyu Branch Academy. Even if Luo Qingtong wanted to enter the Tianyu Branch Academy, she would do it with her own ability. What was the fifth prince? Since when was it his turn to protect him? Since the person behind the scenes wanted to get her into the Tianyu Branch Academy, wouldn't it be disappointing if she didn't go? However, it was up to him to decide when and how he would go. Moreover, even if she didn't want the spot in the Tianyu Branch Academy, she wouldn't let Luo Xinning have it. She would let Luo Xianning know that taking things that didn't belong to her would be troublesome. The more complacent and arrogant she was, the more interesting her expression would be when that thing that didn't belong to her flew away. "Qingtong. You want to. Grandpa, don't worry about this. Anyway, I'm blind. Rather than letting others take advantage of this quota, I'd rather give it to my own sister, don't you think so?" I think most of the people in the Luo family think the same way. If I don't comply with the will of the people, even I feel bad about it. Luo Qingtong smiled enchantingly and wantonly. Her face was beautiful to begin with, but when she smiled wickedly, it was like a sugar-coated poison. Her sweetness revealed an aura of absolute darkness and bewitchment. "Grandpa, don't worry about this. I have my own plan. Now, I want to talk to you about something else. I want to break off the engagement." Luo Qingtong calmly threw out the bombshell that she wanted to break off the engagement. Pfft. Grandpa Luo was sitting at the side drinking tea. His granddaughter had become very good. After escaping death, she was no longer as weak and easy to bully as before. Chapter 72. What did you say? Old Master Luo looked at Luo Qingtong, who was sitting calmly in front of him, in shock. He almost suspected that there was something wrong with his ears. "Why are you breaking off the engagement all of a sudden? Didn't you like the fifth prince before?" She didn't just like him. She liked him a lot. That was why the original owner was so heartbroken when she found out that the imperial family of Tianyu colluded with Luo Xinning to harm her. Even Luo Xinning didn't hurt her that much. Luo Qingtong sneered in her heart. But I don't like him anymore. Luo Qingtong looked at Elder Luo. Seeing that he still couldn't accept it, she sighed and threw out her trump card. Grandpa, this is the secret guard token of the imperial family of Tianyu. I found it on the people who tried to kill me. Oh, right, they were hiding behind Luo Xinning's men. They saw me being destroyed and blinded by their poison. They were about to torture me. Luo Qingtong said casually. After I escaped, they rushed out and tried to kill me. I killed them instead. She then looked at the furious elder Luo and said softly, Grandpa, Luo Xinning said I was too lucky and got in the way of others. I think I'm probably in the way of the fifth prince's meteoric rise. That was the only reason why the imperial family of Tianyu would try to kill her. Old Master Luo's hands trembled as he took the token from Old Master Luo. Pa! He fiercely threw the secret guard token to the ground. The veins on his forehead were bulging, and his killing intent was overflowing. Bastard! Bastard! He gritted his teeth and cursed. He didn't know if he was cursing Luo Xinning or the imperial family of Tianyu. Elder Luo had thought of many reasons why Luo Qingtong was in trouble, including Luo Xinning. But he didn't think that the imperial family of Tianyu would be involved. He thought that even if the imperial family of Tianyu wanted to break off the engagement, they wouldn't do something so despicable. But now he realized that he was wrong. Not only would they not use such underhanded means, but they would also not use such underhanded means. Instead, he used an even more disgusting and infuriating method. Crippling his cultivation, blinding his eyes with poison, and throwing his granddaughter to be ravaged by a group of men. Just imagining this scene made Elder Luo's face turn purplish red. His eyes were bloodshot. Annul the engagement. He must break off the engagement. Not only did he want to break off the engagement. I want everyone to know what the imperial family of Tianyu is. The fifth prince is not worthy of my granddaughter. Elder Luo was about to explode. He didn't care whether this matter had anything to do with the fifth prince or not. Tianyu's imperial family had been dissatisfied with Luo Qingtong for a long time. Did the fifth prince not know? No. He knew. But he had never cared about it. She had once thought of breaking off the engagement, but he firmly refused and said that he would definitely marry Luo Qingtong. Plus, his granddaughter liked it, so old Master Luo didn't insist. But now, I'll leave tomorrow. I'll go to the Empire of Tianyu to break off the engagement. They had done such a shameless thing, so they wouldn't insist on breaking off the engagement. Well, the Luo family didn't want to marry Luo Qingtong anyway. Annul the engagement. The engagement must be annulled. Luo Qingtong looked at Elder Luo, who was like a lion protecting its cub. She couldn't wait to go to the Empire of Tianyu and question the Yuan family. She smiled happily. It was nice to have a grandfather who would protect her. Chapter 73. Third Miss. Third Miss. Something bad has happened. The next morning, Luo Xinning rolled on the bed and fell asleep for a while. Then, she heard a commotion outside. What is it? Why is it so early in the morning? She rubbed her forehead and looked angry. Luo Xinning had been thinking about the changes after Luo Qingtong came back and how to protect the two things she got. She only went to bed when the sun was about to rise. Of course, she was not in a good mood when she was suddenly woken up. No, no, third miss. It's the first miss. No, no. There was a female corpse hanging at the city gate. A crying old woman said, "It's our first miss. Now he's been captured." She said it was you. Third miss, you ordered her to go there. As long as she saw a naked female corpse hanging at the city gate, regardless of whether she was dead or alive, she would know it was the first miss of the Luo family. The servant girl who came to report was in a panic. She spoke incoherently for a long time before she was able to explain the situation clearly. What? Luo Xian Ning's face was filled with shock. Instantly, her sleepiness disappeared. She felt cold as if she had been doused with ice water. She had made such an arrangement before. However, after the change in Jiaowu Mountain, she thought that Luo Qingtong was dead for sure. She had already gotten the two things from the Luo family, so she let it go. Why would there be a female corpse and a crying woman calling Luo Qingtong? Luo Qingtong had already come back to the Luo family. Wait. Not many people knew that Luo Qingtong had come back to the Luo family. Could it be someone else? As Luo Xinning thought about it, a name appeared in her mind, Yu Wenxue. The seventh princess of Tianyu royal family, Yu Wenxue. She wanted Luo Qingtong to be hung at the city gate and humiliated in front of thousands of people. Her reputation would be ruined. That was what the seventh princess had suggested. Could it be that she was the one who planned this? Luo Xinning was anxious and angry at the same time. That stupid woman. Luo Xinning almost tore the handkerchief in her hand. Yu Wenxue was too spoiled and willful. Did she not know how to read the situation? Why didn't they discuss such a big matter with him before acting? He was really going to be killed by her. Luo Xinning was furious. Just as she was thinking of how to draw a clear line between herself and this matter, a token suddenly shot in from outside and landed on her dressing table. Clang! We've failed. Come quickly. Looking at the note on the secret guard token, Luo Xinning almost broke her fingernails. You finally remembered me at this time. She gritted her teeth, but she couldn't really ignore it. Now, she could only rely on Yu Wenxue. Luo Qingtong's temperament had changed greatly after she came back. Now that she had caught on to his weakness, he would definitely not be able to keep those two things. But hugging Yu Wenshue's thigh was different. There was no way the Yuan royal family would not help to cover up such a scandal. Luo Qingtong's eyes were blind. Logically speaking, the one who would inherit the marquis's household in the future could only be himself. Those two things should also be his. Thinking of this, Luo Xinning's face darkened. After washing up, she flashed out of her room and left the Luo mansion without leaving any trace. Send a signal to tell the Marquis that Luo Xinning is out. Chapter 74. Drunken Goose Pavilion. Luo Laozi invited a group of Dongli Kingdom's royal relatives and heads of noble families to drink here to celebrate Luo Qingtong's safe return. Everyone knew about the marriage between Luo Qingtong and the fifth prince of Tianyu Kingdom. They thought the marriage would be cancelled because of Luo Qingtong's accident. They didn't expect that Luo Qingtong was so lucky to come back alive. At this time, they had to show respect to Luo Laozi. They all came at the invitation. Luo Laozi booked the best private room in Drunken Goose Pavilion. Because it was a private banquet, not many people were invited. But everyone was an important figure in Dongli Kingdom. At this time, someone came to report what happened at the city gate. Luo Laozi was furious. When the banquet was in silence, the door of the outer room was opened from the outside. There was a huge screen between where Old Master Luo and the others were having their banquet, and the private room outside was divided into the inner and outer rooms. When the people inside didn't speak, the people outside didn't know there was someone inside. Just as everyone was wondering who had come in, they suddenly heard an exasperated female voice from outside. Seventh Princess. Didn't I tell you before? I'll take care of everything. Why did you suddenly intervene? What's going on? The female corpse at the city gate, was it you who did it? How do you want me to clean up the mess? Luo Xinning was furious. She pushed the door open and saw a girl sitting beside the screen. She immediately started to make trouble. Luo Qingtong sat beside the screen in the outer room. Her head was slightly lowered, blocking most of her face. Hearing Luo Xinning's voice, she smiled. The fish took the bait. Seventh princess. The female corpse at the city gate? The people in the banquet were about to scold the person who came in when they heard the news. They paused. They glanced at Luo Laozi secretly and looked at each other. They didn't know what was going on. At this moment, a low female voice suddenly came from outside. What did you do? Luo Xinning, I don't know. Hearing the voice, everyone was shocked. There was someone outside? However, they soon realized what was going on. It was none other than Luo Qingtong. Just now, someone came to report what happened at the Luo family. Luo Qingtong was depressed and embarrassed to stay in the banquet. She said she wanted to calm down outside. Was that her voice? Was she trying to trick Luo Xinning? Thinking of this, everyone's eyes lit up. Something was going on. Everyone's interest was completely aroused. There was a moment of silence at the banquet. They all wanted to see what kind of big news the Luo family was going to reveal. But they didn't expect Luo Xinning's words. You don't know anything? Ha! Yuan Shui, are you going to burn the bridge after crossing it? Luo Xinning's words. Because of what had happened before, she did not notice that there was something wrong with the voice of the person opposite her. And Luo Qingtong's SS. She. Hearing that the other party seemed to want to push everything to her and ignore it, Luo Xinning immediately lost her rationality. You really don't know what I did? I helped you lure Luo Qingtong to the 9 Magi Mountain to break through. I crippled her cultivation and blinded her eyes with poison. I even threw her to a group of men. Chapter 75. Bang! Before Luo Xinning could finish her sentence, the screen in front of her was blown away. Grandfather Luo was like an angry lion. He stood behind the screen with bloodshot eyes and glared at her. Behind him was a group of aristocratic families and nobles who were already dumbfounded. Everyone was completely shocked by the shocking news that Luo Xinning had revealed. Holy shit! What did they just hear? The imperial family of Tianyu teamed up with the concubine's daughter of the second branch of the Luo family to kill Miss Luo? And it was such a vicious scheme? The crowd couldn't believe their ears. But looking at Luo Xinning's shocked expression, they knew that what they heard was true. While everyone was still in shock, Luo Xinning was also shocked by the group of people who appeared behind the screen. These people were all important figures in the Eastern Fence country, and they were all gathered here. And Grandfather Luo was also among them. How could this be? How could they appear in the private room that she and Princess Qi agreed on? Luo Xinning was in disbelief. Just then, she heard Luo Qingtong's voice. Sister. Luo Xinning, you are really my good sister. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes and looked at Luo Xinning in disbelief. The most unbelievable part was yet to come. She would take back what they owed the original owner of the body. You. Luo Qingtong? Luo Xinning also saw that the person sitting behind the screen was none other than Luo Qingtong. She went to the wrong place and mistook Luo Qingtong for Princess Qi. But the slip of paper tied to the token clearly said that it was here. Luo Xinning's mind was in a mess. Before she could figure it out, Grandfather Luo stepped out from behind the screen and kicked her hard. Evil creature. Luo Qingtong didn't talk about how she was persecuted in detail. Only today did old Master Luo know how vicious her methods were. No wonder Qingtong's temperament changed so much. After experiencing all this, how could her temperament not change? Master Luo was so angry that he kicked Luo Xingning from the private room on the second floor to the hall below with the power of a peak martial marquis. Bang! Luo Xingning fell to the ground and rolled twice. She couldn't get up for a long time. Grandpa, she looked at old Master Luo, who rushed out of the second floor in anger, and her mind went blank. Until now, she still didn't know how things had turned out this way. She came out after receiving the 7th Princess Secret Guard token. How did she end up in old Master Luo's banquet? At this moment, she saw Luo Qingtong. The latter was dressed in green and looked like a fairy. She was devastatingly beautiful. That simple green robe made her feel like a fairy in the forest. The girl walked out from behind old Luo and looked at Luo Xingning calmly. "You've failed. Come quickly." Luo Xingning saw her lips move slightly and said silently. These were clearly the words she had seen on the note. It was her. All of this was done by Luo Qingtong. She was the one who set the trap for her. She said that she was in cahoots with the 7th princess. Luo Xianning regained her senses and was instantly enraged. She spat out a mouthful of blood. She had treated Luo Qingtong like a fool for more than 10 years. She did not expect that she would fall into her trap. How could she accept this? Luo Xingning fainted in an instant. What a disgrace! Old Master Luo was still angry. He waved his hand and ordered people to carry Luo Xingning back. He raised his head and looked at the people who had yet to recover from their shock. He shouted angrily, "Everyone has seen what happened today. We can't afford to marry into the Tianyu royal family. We will cancel the engagement immediately. When the time comes, please be my witness." As he spoke, he cupped his fists and left with his men. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.